3, 2, 1.
Oh,
we're live. Oh,
are these things hot?
Hello. Hey, everybody. What?
Good start. Good start.
Oh, God, I got it. One. Sorry, I'm getting nervous. Welcome to Plat Chat episode 20. Plat Chat VALORANT episode 20. I'm drinking out my Cloud9 mug to celebrate them qualifying for first strike.
Wow, brutal. 10
We got
seconds in.
a little guest, goes by the name of Connor Prince. Mr. Avast has joined us.
Hello.
He's in his brand new mansion that he's just bought off the back of all that money he's earning.
You should see it. It's pretty good cardboard box extensions here for the roofs. So I have to say that we're gonna survive at least one storm. One of the freak hailstorms that are in Dallas, Texas.
We were just talking about hot toddies for some reason because you said you had a hot toddy last
I said
night.
I made one the other day because I mentioned, because I think I may have heard Wyatt discuss on his stream that like it's like, yeah, Bren was drinking a vat of acid, otherwise known as like a hot toddy or something. I was like, I gotta try this out. Never heard of it. And then I made it, and
It's good.
It was
It's
okay.
good.
It was okay.
I mean,
You make it to
I think the concept is good, but whatever you made that day, there's no way it was good.
That was the last one I made.
mean, this is not an exaggeration. I did say this on stream. I could smell it. I was somewhere between 6 to 8 feet away, and there was a pungent alcohol stench coming out of what is a mixed drink with tea and honey.
It's not tea.
no,
It's
you
just
can
hot
make tea.
water.
Honey
You
and
can
hot
make a
water?
cold toddy though, and there's tea.
So it was the last one I made of the night.
A cold toddy is just diluted whiskey.
No, but you can put tea in there too, and it's like it's a cold toddy, dude. I saw it. I researched it.
Yeah, I've seen people put tea in them.
Anyway.
That drink was horrific.
Yeah, here's my excuse.
Okay. You wanted to get
Yeah, I had a couple of beverages, couple of drinks. Got to the end of the night.
Yeah.
Had a decent amount of whiskey left. Decided to fill half the cup with whiskey, and then call it a day, and then just mix the rest in with water and honey and lemon.
That's awful.
So
That is
it was
awful.
essentially just pure whiskey that I was drinking.
But when you say whiskey as well, are you talking about the honey flavored Jack Daniels?
No,
that you
no,
actually
no,
the
no,
got?
Jack Daniels Tennessee honey.
Jack Daniels.
No, it's horrendous. We have so much Jack Daniels Tennessee honey. It's never getting drank.
I bought it.
I try to force myself to drink it sometimes because someone's got to get rid of this, and I can't do it. I can't do it, man.
It's
What an abomination.
It's 3 liters of it because I got it cheap.
3 liters. What are you trying? Are you about to raid the Norman coast or something with that much liquor? Like, what are you doing with 3 liters of? I can't believe that.
Half of it's gone.
Oh, look at this.
It is.
Wow.
I mean, no free.
Maybe it's not
sponsor.
3 liters. How much is it?
I mean, it's
pretty big.
It's thick,
it's
though.
ridiculous.
It's a
man.
thick animal.
I mean, what have we had this for? I don't know, like 2 years or something. We've gone through like.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
I mean, how much is it? I don't even know. If we were all here in person, we would start swigging at this by now. We start doing it.
I don't know.
That's sort of a nice idea, but no one would be doing.
I like this at the side. It says quality and craftsmanship. That's what you can expect out of the Jack Daniels Tennessee honey.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
But anyway, sponsor us if you're interested.
Yeah. Tell you what,
Yeah,
Jack
big
Daniels.
fans of your product.
And they say after we just shit
fancy
talked
your product.
Why are you drinking out of a Cloud9 mug? That seems extremely
Because it's big.
on the nose, you know. Shinobi wants to come on our show, and he's going to tune in, and he sees you just sipping away at the tears.
It's just it's. I don't know who. Do we know who owns this mug?
I don't know.
Someone in the house owns this mug, and it's like the biggest mug in the house. And I use it all the time. It's essentially my mug. When they eventually move out, I'm going to be taking it with me. It's mine.
So
at
you're
this
just
point.
announcing you're going to steal the mug. Like, no matter
I'll
who
buy it off
wants
them if they're willing to sell.
Oh,
But
okay.
if they're not, then yes, I will be stealing it.
Okay. Sounds very mafia-like, It's like,
Sure.
I will buy it, but otherwise I will take it. Without, I will take it otherwise.
Take what is mine. FaZe Clan. Huh?
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
That's a team that, what did you say? You were like, I'll give them the first strike event.
Yeah, I
Well,
did.
he was
yeah.
gonna
the
say
first
it.
strike
Wyatt was
event.
going to say it.
We did.
What's the it meter?
What's
that?
Yeah, I'm never actually going to say it. Everyone was waiting for me to say it about FaZe Clan because it's just been. I mean, it really has been not good up until this point, right? I mean, not a lot to be excited about. But yeah, we did say on a previous episode, you're right, that, or at least I said, I was going to give them until the end of first strike, and then at that point, you kind of have to evaluate things. But at the last second, they actually pulled it off, like against all odds, honestly. I mean, it's hard to believe that they came in second after getting, knocked out by Equinox in the last one.
Yeah,
It's
they
pretty
lost the Moon
ridiculous.
Raccoons
Yeah.
as well. Like, this just wasn't looking. The doomsday clock on the meter definitely going down a bit.
Yeah.
They knew that it was midnight and they had to dial it back.
Don't know what that
Just a
was.
bit.
Yeah.
Just breaking
A
shit.
mic
Carry
clip.
on.
There's like a mic clip that just flew off. Anyway.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, they really
Yeah.
did squeak on through though, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, even if they hadn't made it to the top 8, I still think that FaZe should have, or at least the team should have been reasonably content with like going for a deep run. They at no point during the tournament prior to this crazy last few days, in my opinion, looked like a top 8 team.
Oh.
So I wouldn't have called for them to, be dissolved or anything. I don't mean like in a pot of acid. I mean the team.
And a hot toddy.
Yeah. But I don't think you could have called for the team to be broken up or make roster changes, even if they hadn't qualified, because they actually did a pretty decent run. But to actually make it into the top 8 of North America, beating T1 and Gen.G, those are some damn good results.
Especially with T1 looking so much better. Like this tournament, I think after they brought back Ska and Spider, aka Saya player, actually started like showing off like a lot of what he can really do. I think that this is going to be, I think that's a pretty impressive performance from them, considering that they were just so lackluster before. And they still played Cypher, which a lot of teams were allergic to, but they still played Zach on the Cypher, which I
they
actually
swapped him back. Actually, they trialed him for a bit on the Killjoy, and I thought it was working pretty well, honestly.
Yeah.
But then they've moved him back. I think, I mean, I don't really know why, because the rest of their strategic playbook seems to be, we are going to push and duel people as much as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that really the difference between Cypher and Killjoy is a big, turn in the page for them. Is a new chapter has been unlocked. I don't think it makes
Cypher has the cages difference than a Killjoy. If they were going to be super aggressive, at least they could utilize. We saw them use like cages a lot more. Now with like the wires and cams aren't quite as strong after the nerf, so they're still like really really good. Which is why it's so weird to me that teams are like allergic to running Sentinels somewhat, especially C9, which were like I feel like so reliant on Sentinels before.
And
like
TSM as well.
TSM I can give it a pass for, because I think Hazed, Drone, and Wardell, you have like the players there to run triple duelist on certain maps where it's good. I think if you have the players for it, you can run triple duelist. But I don't think C9 can. I don't think they can.
I think with FaZe as well, though, I am very impressed with how far Raucus has come. Like, people were giving him a lot of shit. Every time they lose, he's kind of the person who gets the public scrutiny at this point. I think people kind of moved on from Zachary. Yeah, sure.
More so, I think people have given a lot of crap to Baby Bay recently on the Jett as well.
And I actually think if anyone,
as they say,
I think if anyone actually kind of needed a bit of blame, it was Baby Bay. I think his Jett was wildly inconsistent up until the end of this qualifier, where he was actually consistently popping off. I mean, if he can keep at that level, he is legit star quality player. But yeah, for most of their run of him on Jett, he had been wildly inconsistent. I think as well in this qualifier, I think they doubled down on the aggressive style, even with the switch to
they
Cypher
did in this
and everything.
one,
which I think is fine for them. I think
Yeah.
that's definitely good for them. I think some teams, I think right now they can't play hyper aggressive, and some teams can, and FaZe definitely can. TSM can, I think. C9s though, I hate to keep going back to C9, but no, C9 cannot still.
Yeah,
I'm still in my eyes moment watching Mitch on Duelist as opposed to like Killjoy.
I mean, that really was a my eyes moment. I watched that and I was in Mauled City immediately.
Which is weird, because Mitch, they did really well earlier in the qualifiers with Mitch on Killjoy, and 100 Thieves ran Steel on Killjoy the entire time, and it was good.
Do we want to transition into
No,
Cloud9?
not yet. I want to ask,
Okay.
what are your expectations for FaZe Clan then in the main event? Because it's a different patch.
Yeah.
It's a different patch. It's obviously higher stakes. Do you think that FaZe Clan were just turning up on the week, or is there potential for this team to actually make a run?
Well, I don't think they were just turning up on the week. The reason being is that when I watch the games, not only are they popping off individually, which I think, okay, that that's definitely a moment where you just turn up and you hit your shots. But when I was watching them when they played against TSM, actually, where they lost, right? But they had some extremely impressive moments within that series where they showed that they had not just the skill to be able to go along with it, but they had tempered their aggression. And on Haven in particular, when they're defending, they like to push mid constantly, but they were pushing it in a way where there were other people supporting, watching angles for them, or they had a little bit of utility, or they were pushing, but not just literally feeding and inting for kills. They were just pushing to gain information. And then also they were pushing based off info that they had on other parts of the map. Like if they saw a bunch of util used over A, that would be the timing to try and push a little deeper into mid. It's just a slightly smarter way of playing their full int comp. And they've managed to squeeze the extra little percent out of that, so that they're not literally just running it down mid. There is actually a strategy and some coordination between the players. And that I think is the next step for them, is developing that aspect of it. And it seems like it's coming together.
Yeah, I do think, this was always the thing about the calls to just nuke the team that have been going on for the past few months. It always felt awkward to want to say that, they should just blow up the team and do something new, because you saw them visibly improving over time. Still, up until this point, they've been consistently improving. It's just that they started so much lower than where the expectations were at, right? But they have been improving the whole time. So, I mean, if they can keep it up, they could do all right. I don't expect them to...
Well, they go up against Sentinels. I just looked at the bracket to remind myself.
Yeah.
I mean, they ain't winning.
They're gonna crush. I think Sentinels crush them 100%. I think Sentinels.
They're lose in the first round, but still quite an accomplishment to make that to make it at all.
Do you think they're going to lose the first round?
Yeah. I think Sentinels for sure. Sentinels are just way better. Well, because FaZe is just like FaZe is just. I think they just need like a CS style coach or something like that. You know, like they need to learn how to swing, how to play contacts, how to just not like take 1v1s
they
randomly.
They really love ego peeking constantly.
Yes.
Whenever they're in post plant positions or any kind of clutch, they are going to peek you 100% of the time. They're not going to wait. They're not going to play off contact. They are going to fucking peek.
Compared to like Immortals, which is their post plant and their swings got like literally so much better, even with Shanks. Like FaZe that's still like their number one like issue at times. It's just they just peak randomly and they never like swing together half the time.
Yeah, Corey's Reyna is just going to be in your face, even if it's a bomb plant situation. He's just pushing out of the site, pushing through garage on Haven, just going to push into you. But
I can see,
and I think that kind of stuff can work. Like you can be really active in post plans, but you need to do it coordinated together. Like if you want to take an area of the map after your post plan, if you don't feel comfortable, you get like antsy in the post plan, and you feel like your players aren't great at just holding angles and winning clutches like that. Well, you don't have to. Like say you plant on split, the map that we're watching now, go and push screens or push CT depending on which site you're on, but make it coordinated. Don't just randomly do it with one player and then another player pushing ramp or something like that. If you want to take an area of the map and be active in the post plan, sync it up. Don't just randomly peek people. That's the number one thing that FaZe is bothering me with.
Can I go back to saying it?
Go on and say it.
Oh, here we go.
I could see a world in which FaZe beat Sentinel.
Okay, why do you say that?
Because we're heading to a new patch, which is already rife for upsets and potential for upsets. I think the expectations...
before we even move on from that, what in the patch would possibly favor FaZe?
I don't think anything, but you never know. You know, it might change things up.
Wait. It's like, what could possibly favor FaZe there? Oh, nothing really. I just got a feeling.
I'm just saying, a new patch can change things in unexpected ways. I'm not Nostradamus. I can't predict that. But what I can say is that a new patch does add some new elements into Flux here, and it can throw some things off, right? Another thing I think that might play a part, maybe I'm underestimating Sentinels to a tad here, but I think they've not had fantastic performances in the qualifiers, in the closed events. As soon as they made it into the main event, they just kind of they wrote the whole thing off. I feel like the storyline that's been so pervasive is that they've been intentionally throwing and not really caring. But I think that can affect the team if you play like that as your like mentality.
Well, do you even think that's true? I mean, I could see some people believing that Sentinels are just simply overrated.
No, I
don't
still think
believe that,
Sentinels
but
are
I can
good.
see some people believe that.
You can make the argument too that I think for Sentinels at least that the fact that there's a subsection of agents called Sentinels and we're talking about Sentinels is really annoying. But like I feel like the Sentinel changes also changed their tempo a bit for Sentinels because they were so good at utilizing their utility at times. Like I feel like that's still a patch where teams have been like, we've been deciding, are we going to run triple duelist? Are we going to keep playing Killjoy? Are we going to play Cypher? And Sentinels, I think, since they were so good at utilizing the utility before and using it just like make really good rotations, sometimes I feel like it can affect their tempo a bit, and maybe they're just adjusting to like some of those changes.
Yeah, I do. I stand on the side of people who think that Sentinels were just kind of sandbagging the later part of the qualifiers. But I still think that if it was going to happen, it happens when, it's going to happen when you least expect it. And it would be, Sentinels as the lowest seed, obviously, coming in and playing against FaZe Clan. And yeah, you never know.
I actually think that the stylistic matchup isn't too bad for FaZe. I think Sentinels like to be very active themselves. And even though they have good defaults, they like to play with enough pace that they spread themselves wide while still being confident in the map control that they take. Like Dapper or Shazam will, or Dapper or Sick actually more regularly will try and take different areas of the map away. Sometimes single-handedly, just with good utility usage. And if the FaZe players are truly popping on that day, I could see them maybe being able to like kill those individual players when they go, just by, I don't know, like peeking a cyber cage when it's just a dumb moment to do so, and Dapper's caught off guard, but they hit the shot and so they're able to do it. Or if they're playing bind or something, they just read the fact that Sentinels like to go fast B and they flank short every single time and break the trips, and it causes chaos. I don't know. I think because Sentinels like to play so quickly, if FaZe can read that, they would have to play just as fast with really smart flanks and be hitting all of their fucking shots. And even then, I think I would still predict 2-1 to Sentinels.
The money, okay. I mean,
I think it's up to if Marv shows up a bit. For me, when I've been seeing some of these teams that have really young players, and I notice a difference in FaZe sometimes when Marv shows up and doesn't show up. And it's the same way for Immortals, honestly, even with the Shanks subbing. I feel like when JMO shows up, it was a huge difference when JMO started showing up. And like he went from like an amazing player and Opper to just kind of being useless half the time. And I felt the same for Marv at points where, like, granted, he wasn't playing a duelist. He's been playing Omen, but like it's still a big difference that if your Omen player is just not fragging or is just like rando peeking, because Marv was really bad at just ego peeking and dying first at Omen a couple times. There's something that can't happen because Omen controls like the whole pace of how you're setting up retakes and executes and things like that. So I feel like if Marv shows up and just like calms the nerves a bit, FaZe could beat Sentinels from just like being high tempo if Marv is there.
All right, don't get ahead of yourself, Avast. Listen.
You're the one that proposed it, Bren.
Let's talk about Cloud9. Cloud9 did not make it through the qualifier for a second time.
I mean, I've been so critical of Cloud9 since the formation of Cloud9. I mean, they have at least at one point, I think you have to say Tens was the best player in the world. If not, he's one of still. They had him signed for Valorant. I mean, he was signed to the org before Valorant even came out. They had the best Valorant player in the world, and it's just tragic. I mean, what they were able to do in that first qualifier, my expectations were so high for them. And then as soon as I started to really become a fan, they just break my heart. It's just tragic.
It's funny as well because
the first qualifier performance, Kurt, you should pull it up if you can, the Cloud9 page on VLR. Their first qualifier run, if you see their wins,
it's really good.
Ridiculous, man.
This is
Look
the
at
other
all
thing
this.
as well.
It's just green on green.
That's what I mean.
They
Like,
beat Equinox, Boogerman, TSM, Envy, Xset, and 100 Thieves. They lost to Renegades, and Randy Savage just boomed them off the planet.
I haven't been following.
They beat 3 out of the top 4 teams.
Yeah, I have not been
ridiculous.
following the First Strike event as closely as some of you guys have because, well, I'm not. In a lot of fucking games. But what I will say is that the storyline, the narrative that was running through my head was that Cloud9 were steadily improving, and they were always kind of hanging around at that top 4 position, no matter what. Always hanging around there, and then they had improved because, when this team was formed, I mean, we were basically calling to blow them up because it seemed like it was literally just tens carrying 4 other players, right, at the time.
Yeah.
But they have made improvements off the back of that. So what went wrong here? What caused Cloud9 to go out to T1 of all teams?
I think the answer is actually pretty simple. I don't know the reasoning for what happened. But what happened was that they massively changed their style coming into the second qualifier. They originally had a style that was, on most maps, would revolve around Vice playing the breach and being able to flash tens into engagements and give him a big advantage so that he could soak up a bunch of kills in the fights. And then defensively, they would combine those flash peaks to throw the attackers off with great killjoy setups, and not just 1 or 2. They would have a lot of different, really well thought out killjoy setups from Mitch, and the team was playing around the information that he gave, the area on the map that he was shutting down. It all looked good, and you can see from the composition they're running here. Well, actually, they did transition to running Mitch back on the killjoy, but they started with him when they were losing to Space Station. They started with him on the Cypher, and Mitch Cypher just looked a world away from the Mitch Killjoy. It was not even close, the level of information they were gathering from it, but also the shutdown on sites. And the Vice Sova is just getting nowhere near the same value because Cloud9 don't really want mid-round information to be able to play off and put their players in the best positions. They want to flash peak and put their players in position to get kills. Because if they don't throw off their opponents, if they just have a sight hit, Cloud9 are outmatched. You can't just allow Vice to ping them with a recon dart and go, oh yeah, look, they're coming here, get ready. It doesn't actually help you when the sight hit comes in the same way that a breach does.
Well, you would think the killjoy changes, though, they would have still favored keeping Mitch on it, because we saw with 100 Thieves that you can still control the site pretty well. It's just differently. And B, which was something that Mitch was already doing great before and getting information out of it, even with some changes. But also, if you want to be hyper aggressive off these peaks, I feel like since they changed the cooldowns on all the Killjoy's utility, and they changed how the molly works, they can definitely still have used Killjoy to set up tins in those positions off the flashes, But it feels like they just weren't able to figure out how exactly they wanted to do it compared to 100 Thieves, It just felt like they didn't know how they wanted to play it, and they can't play triple duelist. They just can't, because all of C9's old problems come back when they play triple duelist, which it goes back to just Mitch isn't really a fragger, and the best fraggers on the team, Relics, especially Tins, they need Tins to pop off even more so when they play triple duelist, and that's really hard for them to do.
Thing was, Mitch was actually providing more consistent frags than he maybe ever had on Killjoy, just playing intelligently off his utility, baiting his turret. And with that style that he was playing, he was not the type of Killjoy that's just spreading his utility all across the map. So the new patch where some of it would be deactivated actually came into play. He would be tanking a site hard on Killjoy and trading off of his utility. And I just don't particularly think that this patch actually would have nerfed his play specifically.
No, definitely not.
But he was
not.
I feel like Cloud9, they went through so many different iterations of roles, and they finally figured out what worked in that last qualifier. You had 3 support players in Shinobi, Vice, and Mitch. Vice and Mitch just locked down players on defense. The Breach utility was excellent. The Killjoy utility was excellent. And they were just constantly setting up 10s. And Relics, who was looking like this actual legit star player now on Raze, where he was... Relics' stats for that first qualifier were insane. I mean,
they were.
Relics could have been the star player of a team in that last one. But 10s is on that team, so it still looks like 10s. But they were both up there just with insane utility support from the rest of them. And I don't know. I do wonder if they overreacted to losing to Renegades when in reality Renegades were just playing this unique style in NA and they were on just a heater at the time.
You think that's the catalyst?
Their
loss to Renegades for them to switch up their style like this?
I think there's only two things that you can really look at that at least we know of just by looking in that we don't know behind the scenes, which are the Killjoy got nerfed.
Yeah.
And I mean, I say nerfed because changed really, because you can use her turret in more unique ways now because you can pick it up more often. But it's the Killjoy changes, and they lost to Renegades and didn't qualify. Those are the only two things that we see from the outside that could have influenced it, really, that I can think of.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to change their roster though. I think they've committed to these players. I think they've committed to these players for right now, and I don't think they're going to make any like big changes. I kind of feel the same way about like Dig and Space Station and stuff like that. These rosters are kind of just set in stone for a little bit. It's the first strike. I mean, it's the first major tournament. Like, obviously there's been big tournaments before, but this is like the real like first one, the Riot backed one. So I feel like teams are still willing to give it another go.
I'll tell you what.
At the end of the day, though, that game, that loss to T1 is the one that really is the nail in the coffin. Because even though they lose to Renegades, I mean, that's a bit of an upset result. All right, no big deal. The loss to Space Station doesn't even matter that much either, because they end up looking like the favorites in the game against T1. And even if they lost, even if they'd beaten Space Station, the first time around, they would have faced Immortals. And I think that between Immortals and T1, considering, I mean, this look from Cloud9 is what I wanted to mold about a little bit more before we move on. Because I reviewed this game and it was just shockingly awful. Cloud9 had so many good looks on Bind previously. They had a lot of good play with their showers crunching, where they would teleport Shinobi through from A. Sometimes he would fake it, so it's a bit of a mind game. Is he actually going to be through there? The Killjoy setups on B were normally pretty good to be able to like hardcore hold Hookah and give him the timings to be able to peek on that kind of stuff. And Vice was always playing the Sova there as well, so they already had a good idea of how to get value. And instead of going for the Killjoy, which is like how you get the timing and the defense over on B, they're playing with a fucking Phoenix.
Yeah, it's
where they're just trying to, their plan on defense appeared to be, we're going to tank ult orbs onto Mitch so that you can use his run it back to gather information in a similar way that a Sentinel would. To be able to give us mid-round info, to be able to give us early round info, that kind of stuff. The ults were used, one on an anti-eco where they were already set up in a position to win and they just swept them and Mitch bust his ult out in the 4th round. And then the next ult, the second ult of the half, Mitch pops it when they're doing a sand crunch and they've given up the B site and he pops his ult in Hookah, immediately dies because he's on his own, just completely left alone. And then they just kill the body afterwards. I mean, it was just shockingly awful gameplay coming out from Cloud9. It was a world of difference compared to their first qualifier. It was.
Yeah, it really was.
It was just a hard crash down to
But that's just Mitch with a lot less time on Phoenix than like Killjoy. When you look at that's really it. And it's so weird because when you compare it to Drone, Drone used the ult excellently to get information throughout all of First Strike. Like his Phoenix play has still been fantastic. You look at Mitch, and Mitch is over there like quapping about, like just fumbling over there on Phoenix, like he's flashing himself, he's team flashing, he's not like it was just such a weird decision.
It was an incredibly strange decision to go for. We're actually going to have Shinobi on next week as well, I believe, to kind of pick his brains about this kind of stuff too. But I think it deserves some rampant speculation as well. I just don't understand why you would.
I think it's just a team metagaming themselves. I think it's just a team. Sometimes we see it in Overwatch too. Like the meta will change of like, guys, this isn't good anymore. And then everyone plays it and they're like, wait, this is still good. It's really just that simple sometimes.
Would be the team to outbrain themselves. Considering how often they do it on the server, I could see it happening outside of the server too.
Yeah, I don't know if it would be to the same level as it is in Overwatch though, where we have these huge sweeping balance changes where the meta can shift quite drastically. I mean, the core kind of gameplay is the same in Valorant, right? It just
but you did see teams sort of shift away from. There was definitely a split for teams that were still getting lots of value out of like Sentinel play, and teams that just suddenly dropped it entirely, even though they'd been playing it before. So I do think there is, and it's hard to argue still when you see the performances of like even players that are on bad teams like a Proto, or I guess LG isn't a bad team. That's not fair to say, but like when you look at players like a Proto and things like that, like you can still see the amount of value that a Sentinel can get, whether it be Killjoy or Cypher.
Yeah, I'm not saying
that doesn't have crazy aim.
I'm not saying it's a bad comp. I'm just saying I definitely think that there will be. I mean, it's gonna be good to have Shinobi on next week because at the moment I'm like the only thing I can really think of is like literally that they were scrimming and they were getting fucking rolled from.
And that's what some other people were saying in my chat as well. They were theorizing that it was a decision that had come from scrims. Now, I don't really know how it works in North America, but I know that in Europe, a lot of the top teams don't scrim each other because they want to hide things. Because Valorant is a game where if you have certain utility setups or certain set strats, you literally don't want to show those to your opponents, much more than in a game like Overwatch. Because once you've seen them once, they lose their surprise factor. And the whole point of them is that they should be difficult to deal with. If they've already got an idea in their head of how to deal with it, it ruins it. So I'm not assuming that Cloud9 played against any top elite opponents in scrims during that couple of weeks? Was it even just 1 week break?
If they were getting rolled in scrims without playing top teams, then that's even more worrying, you know?
Right.
And that's
they
what
could have been
playing.
They could have been playing top teams, though. They could have played 100 Thieves or Sen or one of the teams that qualified.
Oh yeah, true. Actually, true. But also at that point, I wonder whether you should even take like a week of scrims seriously versus a series of matches against elite tier opponents. Like you just beat TSM, Envy, and 100 Thieves running this style and doing a great job with it. If a week of scrims is then going to knock you off your game and choose you and cause you to go for something you've never really practiced before, that's again just a poor decision, I think. Even if
that's a quintessential like esport like team thing to do though, is like you spend a week getting rolled just because like your mentality was bad or you just had bad days, you know, and it just snowballed. And then players will just be like, this isn't working, we need to swap. That's like the exact words. And like that's 100% a plausible theory for like C9 just had a really bad week and just like, guys, the Sentinelers happened. It's obvious we're running Sentinels, but that would be weird if they were scrimming 100 Thieves or Sen because like they would have still been playing like Killjoy and Cypher, you know? Presumably. Unless they did like the big brain where they just like, guys, let's not play any of our actual like meta agents to make C9 believe that these aren't good anymore.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they were scrimming against TSM or something because they knew they wouldn't meet them in the bracket. And TSM are just running triple duelist and they just, I don't know, convinced themselves that was the wave going forwards. Don't Cloud9 have a coach and an analyst as well? Don't they have like Chu and James?
They have Chu as coach.
James for RL or something.
Yeah, I don't remember who.
I don't know. Anyway, we can ask Shinobi next week. No big deal.
The biggest thing to take away from this, though, is that it's the biggest upset across any first strike. This isn't some like European BO1 thing where it's just unlucky and it's horse shit that a team goes out. This is Cloud9 had two really, really extensive attempts at qualifying and looked incredible in the first one, but were upset in a BO3 in very reasonable fashion by a team that was just playing explosively. And then in the second one, they imploded and they completely failed to be able to make it through. That's a major upset because Cloud9, I think, any reasonable ranking over the past 3 months still has them as a top 4 team.
Yeah, sure.
Even after not qualifying.
Yeah.
T1 for the team to beat them.
T1.
T1, the team that have always been steadily improving, and it seems like this was the moment where finally, there's a lot of teams that play a little bit too loose. You know what I mean? T1 wasn't one of them. They were always
very. Yeah.
Always
unbelievably tight, tight.
Very rigid, very rigid in terms of their play. But they've loosened up a little bit now. You know, they got the flexibility. They got that 5-minute working stretch routine going on. You know, shout out to Jake Overwatch for sending me a little video. You know, I'm going to start incorporating that in my morning routine. Didn't do it this week. That's why I'm Well, today at least. That's why I'm a little bit tired.
I didn't stretch beforehand, huh?
Yeah, I probably should have. I'm getting distracted as well by a man of a leaf blower outside as well. This is what my
You are a squirrel.
I'm
you
a
are
golden
actually a
retriever
squirrel.
of a human.
Well, I bet he's warmed up. You know, that's a lot of rotator cuff like movement. You know, moving that leaf blower around. So maybe you should be doing that. Do some yard work to warm up before.
Yard work.
Just become a gardener.
Sure, yeah, why not? T1, let's fucking talk about T1. Jesus Christ. They're finally improving, and they've knocked out Cloud9, obviously an immense upset that we've already talked about. This team seem to be on an upwards trajectory still, even now. So what do we make of this win? I mean, when I was going to ask, really, was it a combination of factors of T1 improving and Cloud9 kind of slouching with their comp and stuff? But, I mean, just give me some general thoughts on T1, I suppose. Starting with you, Connor Prince. Boom.
I mean, first, I think that the big iron showed up for like very large, very hugely. Dazed, I think actually the big iron. I think actually Dazed had a really good had some really good moments during this tournament. I think Dazed had a great performance. And also I think the method of when Ska was benched for a little bit and then come back, Ska had a really, really incredible showing on the Jett. I think sometimes I don't even necessarily know what their benching reasons was for Ska. It could be any multitude of reasons, but sometimes you just need to realize that like you just need to take players to like essentially the equivalent of like benching a player sometimes that's really good and is central to your team is you take him to like you pretty much take him to like the Large Hadron Collider and you're like, look at this, you're nothing in the face of the universe. Like we're gonna bench you and then you're gonna come back humbled and you're gonna be really good. And, like that's what I feel like happened to Ska. No, it could have just been they wanted Ska to like round out his.
What do you think the Large Hadron Collider is?
Because you take them there and they're throwing fucking particles against each other, right? And it's like this is the building blocks of the universe. And you look at this like, what am I? I'm dust. Right? Like I'm nothing. And then you realize that you can bench your star players or your players are integral to your team and they'll come back and they're important. Like teams just need to realize like benching players works.
Is that what Boston did to you in the Overwatch League?
That's what made me That's what made me what I am today, Josh. Okay. Like I was like in the scene from Wolverine where I emerged from the tank and I'm renewed. It's like that's what happened. You gotta bench someone at points and you gotta make them realize that they're not that important. And like then you're actually gonna get a good player. I think Immortals did that with JC Stanny. Right? Wasn't it JC Stanny or am I thinking of?
They did.
Yeah, I think that was a great decision. I think that was a great because JC Stanny right now in my eyes is like the best IGL, one of the, if not the best IGL in North America.
Yeah.
So
pretty good. It's intriguing. So when I watched T1, of the little I watched them, and of course like the thing that I'm comparing it to is like quite old, like the first qualifiers, but it seems like Spider is playing a lot more loose. Than he has before.
Sure. I mean, even on the Omen, he's playing more loose, but the fact that they're allowing him to play Raze now has been just hugely influential for them. I love the Jett Raze comps. I think that they're just the best right now.
Sure.
And their bind play is a world apart.
Bro,
it doesn't not look like the same team on bind at all. Their attacking halves now are explosive. Yeah. They're fast. Their executes are excellent. They're taking map control. I'm like Spider, when you have the Raze utility, they're clearing out hookah, they're clearing out showers, and they're using his utility to find picks in showers. I mean, that was working against Cloud9. They were finding so many picks off the Raze utility. It is genuinely worlds apart. It does not even look comparable to their gameplay on bind, even just a few weeks ago.
And it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the Spider changes. It's kind of been a long time coming for some people, but it really is working. And I like him on Raze a lot. Like, I hope they stay away from like the Reyna and that type of gameplay. I really like what they're doing with him on the Raze. Skadoodle on the Jett. It was just working perfectly.
I think he had some amazing lurks in particular. His lurks, he would just constantly catch like two people off. And like he would just be like lurking in sand or something on bind. And then like he would randomly just get like two people off the lurk. And I'd be like, what is how are they pushing Spider and losing these fights?
That's the thing. If you do push him, if he is aware that you're going to that you're going to be there, he pretty much wins almost any Angel that he's come up against in NA. Like the times where he gets caught out is because his positioning is predictable or he's in the wrong place. But the guy's mechanics are absurd. So if he's playing an agent like the Rays, where you get information on where your opponents are holding, or you flush them out of certain positions, he's very good at hitting the shots when he's favored in the duel. He's gonna deliver on that like 9 times out of 10. And it was like flicking a switch as soon as Spider went over to the Rays on that map. Apparently they said that they had tried him on Duelist in the past and it hadn't worked out for them. And so I've got to think that they did, like, the combination of them learning how to take aggressive map control early in the round, plus him then coming back in to play the Duelist. Some combination of that eventually just clicked, and they immediately became a much better team. That's on the back of like slow strategic improvements, slow improvements from Dazed. But the big like woof, we're immediately better, was with them figuring out how to take extremity control and putting Spider on the Duelist, and then just pushing 2 players deep into bomb sites just gives them so much more explosive power on that map. I want to see them extended to all the different maps as well. This is apparently what they're going to do, is move AZK over to Smoke full time. But especially for like Split, where Dazed was playing Rays, I absolutely get Spider on the Rays there, even if it doesn't work on the other maps.
I would keep Dazed on the Sova continuously, probably. But they were really good at setting up the executes and just getting Ska like into the site and just like punishing someone. So I really think that T1 is they're getting more flexible, as we would say. They're getting more flexible.
I think you have to give a lot of credit as well. I mean, Daze has improved quite a bit, but also Brax finally looks alive in the server. He looks sentient. He's taking map control with the cages. He is confident in taking duels. It's that moment of realization, like, oh right, I am good. Like he was playing like he wasn't actually a
large Hadron Collider moment right there.
Yeah, pretty much. But he actually looks confident in the server now. He's taking map control alone. He's taking duels alone. He was getting way more kills than he was in any other tournament up until this point. I think this was his best showing in a long time.
It was. It really feels like, from watching them over the course of First Strike, they've learned how to play Valorant. Like they've learned how to play this game. This is how this game works. Where you use your utility really effectively to take areas of the map, and you have to be active and aggressive at the very beginning of the round in order to take that space so that you can translate it into an execute later on. And that just seems to have clicked. I think that's a combination of all of the players figuring that out by playing against top level competition and like testing different stuff. And a huge credit to them, because there are other teams that would not make that development anywhere near as quickly. That's what I love actually about watching T1 and FaZe, is that you see those improvements from match to match, from week to week. They're actively a better and better team as time goes on, visibly before your very eyes. They are evolving. And that just doesn't happen with most other rosters.
Cough, cough, Gen.G. Cough, cough.
Yeah. We're gonna. I mean, we can talk about Gen.G now. I mean, I think that's fine to move on to.
Sure.
To
Would you allow it?
I'll allow it. I mean, I was going to talk about Immortals actually, but I suppose
it's up to you, moderator.
I'll tell you what. We'll talk about Gen.G. I've got. I'll give you permission just this once.
Thank you.
So. Gen.G's struggling. I mean, this is disappointing, honestly. We've got the biggest fan next to me.
Yeah.
Every morning you come down to the kitchen, I'd see you and you'd be sulking in your cereal because Gen.G just weren't performing where you knew they could. Every single day.
Just a tragedy, really. Yeah. Just a tragedy. I mean,
their losses were close. Is the thing? Their losses were close. Like they weren't blown out.
But I mean,
we were so high up on them when Sean came in. We thought it was going to solve all our problems. So why didn't it?
Well, I don't know if that's actually 100% true. Maybe it's because we were so hype about Sean that we made it seem like it would solve all their problems. But their problems definitely extended, even back then, far beyond the individual skill level of the team. It was really in their actual gameplay. It was in their decision making. It was in their lack of taking map control on attack and just doing these tired executes. And honestly, not much has changed in that regard. I mean, they have a bit more firepower with Sean on the Reyna, but even then, it's not like he's running around on the map like just a confident freak, just out-aiming everyone. And also, Reyna grants you virtually no effective utility for your team. And aside from that, they have injected some pace into the team. They're playing faster. Their executes are faster. The positives for me are I really like Hwin's Jett entrying. I think he's been really effective. GMD has been really good, as always. But aside from that, it's been more of the same executes. They are doing some things a bit faster, but even then, it was at the very beginning, it was like, holy shit, this looks like a new Gen.G. They're playing so quick. These executes are excellent. But then 3 weeks later, it's like, oh, they're doing the same. They're just doing the same A hit again. They're just all going A main again. I mean, it's just the same thing. Hwin is dashing into backside. Dawn is following up probably slightly too slowly, and then here come the rest of them 5 seconds later. It's the same thing over and over, man. It's really tragic. I mean, I feel like they're in the same position they were when we were talking about them after that Renegades NSG tournament, except now they just have one great upcoming player on the team. But again, they need to just light the little notebook full of strategies on fire and reset, because it's just not working.
Yeah, it's when I watch Gen.G, I think they're really suffering from the Sean Reyna. And you wouldn't expect that by looking at the stats. His stats are still very, very good. But the value that he gets for his team is pretty minimal compared to what they need from that secondary duelist. When they're on attack, he's following in Hwin, but he's not really adding any utility to the execute because he's only got the Leas to be able to work with, and he's not playing aggressively enough to be able to make space for the other guys on the team either. So he's in a position where he's attempting to kind of mop up the kills, but with not enough confidence to go and force a bunch of aim duels and try and win them. That's how he was playing at the beginning and why it looked really good. But the further through the tournament we got, the more he was just kind of taking the space that Hwin gave him, but not really pressing any further and not creating space himself. And if you're playing on the Reyna, I think you need to be forcing aim duels. You need to be playing with that level of confidence. Otherwise, you're just hampering your team because you're not providing them any util. And on defense as well, a lot of one and done positions, a lot of just getting a kill and dismissing away, a lot of being traded out eventually as well, and not really providing your team very much value. It doesn't seem like a position where he's contributing that much, despite the fact that he is getting kills.
I feel like that's definitely that was a narrative that sort of got shoved down our throats sometimes at points where, like, when Shanks subbed for IMT, everyone was like, yo, Shanks is carrying this team, and they were actually like not looking that good. And the next day they looked a lot better, even though Shanks was doing worse, because they started playing, their executes were so much better, and they actually started like using their utility so much better to get map control, even though Shanks wasn't like perma-dicking. Like, and that's like what you want, is that your Reyna shouldn't always, I think, be like the top frag on the server, but I do think your Reyna should be like opening up a lot of these positions and how they play it. And I feel like Sean was just like you talked about, Josh, just like he was just playing for trades, or just like playing for like hey, I'm gonna come clean up, but I'm not actually gonna open up a site in any way. I'm not gonna like exploit any sort of advantage that I have. I'm just playing Reyna to get kills. I'm not actually playing Reyna to open anything.
So sick of NA Reyna. I've seen enough. I mean, for me, it is just in my eyes at this point. I've seen enough of the NA Reyna. I just feel like I know there's no utility value in it for your team. It's really awful how much she's being ran by some of these teams. And the more I watch this Gen.G team, I think that they actually do need to role swap at this point. I think that they need to get GMD back on the duelist and get Sean back on Sova Breach. And with the way they're playing as well, I don't feel like they get any value out of having a Sova. They very rarely are making map control plays. I would much rather even see them run the Breach at this point. Like, I don't feel like they're actually getting much value out of the Sova, but maybe they...
I would like to see them do that, though.
Yes, I would also like to see them do that. Right. So, honestly, what I would like to see is get GMD back on the duelist, get him on the Raze. He was always an excellent Raze on... GMD is good at everything in this game. He's so well-rounded. But I loved his raise. I think that they should adjust into playing more of a map control game with Sean on the Sova, have him on Breach on Split, get GMD on Raze, keep Quinn on the Jett, and then I like player 1 on Cypher or Omen. I like Mikhail on Cypher or Omen. It doesn't really matter for me which of those is playing which. They're both good at both. And I think that they would immediately see success from that. But they need to start playing a different mid-round game because they just finished with the same executes every single time without really selling anything. They're not taking any control. It's always just 5 guys through 1 choke.
Yeah. It never seems to be reactive, right? There's no difference based on where their opponents are holding or any hole they see in the defense, or they're not using the information. I
never see them do like those small micro plays that all the other teams do, where like you'll just smoke someone and then you'll pop the arrow through the smoke to try to find them. You know, like they never do anything to catch players ever. Like their map, which I feel like is a big difference between all of like the lower level teams with talent and the upper level teams, just is how well they just like do
a lot of micro plays,
a lot of micro plays, just to like push someone and catch somebody. They never do that.
Gen.G are definitely more of like sight hit. Like we're gonna work the map a little bit and then transition into a sight.
So what is the future of this roster then with Gen.G? Because I mean, the thing that we've really just nailed is essentially that their playbook has been too narrow for too long. And it's not enough to keep up with the top teams. It was good early enough. Do you remember, like, very early on, Gen.G was the best team in NA? You know, they were winning a lot of the tournaments.
Super early in the beta.
Because, I mean, that was all you needed. You needed a good playbook, a good foundation to build upon. It was other teams weren't really able to read you because they weren't doing the prep. They weren't doing the necessary research beforehand. What is the future of this team?
I still think they could be a solid top NA team if they make the correct role swaps, and actually play effective mid rounds. And yeah, I think that's a great call as well, with more micro team plays between 2 teammates and more map control, more reacting to what they're actually seeing on the map, rather than just we're gonna do this in mid for 10 seconds and we're all just gonna group up A main and hit.
Because I don't think Gen.G ever gets blown out. Like, it's not like Complexity where they just get blown out sometimes. Like, I think Gen.G is good enough to where all they need to do is just learn how to set up plays and learn how to do something other than like default executes every single time, and actually how they want to and using utility really well. Like that's really, they just need to round out their playbook, and I think they'll be okay. I just don't think they're that bad.
Okay, in the context of post First Strike, there have been new teams that have evolved up to the level where even if Gen.G got their shit together, they're probably still happy with a top 8 spot in North America. They were a top 4 team at some point in the summer. You could even argue a top 3 team at some point. I don't think that's coming back. Like, unless Cloud9 falls to pieces, and T1 and Immortals and Unbox and all of these other teams that are coming up, Renegades, all of those guys
Space
stop
Station
improving.
Gaming,
like they're getting overtaken hard right now, and the rate of improvement would have to rapidly turn the other way in order for them to get in the top 5. It just doesn't seem reasonable to me that would be your aim. If you're Gen.G, you want to be aiming for top 8 at the moment, because I don't think they're even there right now.
So what do you think, Josh?
Currently,
blow them up, change things around.
No, I'm still saying you make these small adjustments though to both the roles to get more value out of Sean, but also crucially the element that they keep missing when they throw these roles around is the strategy, is how they actually approach the game. But you don't even have to mess with the roles if you don't want to. If you think these are good roles, stick with these roles. You can get more value out of them by changing the way that you play.
I think very few teams get affected by role swaps other than C9, honestly. It's just strategy.
You think? I think roles do make a big difference.
I used to think that Avast, but the more and more I see, I think roles are even I think they're important.
I think they've gotten to the point where it's almost like we've gotten so specialized that it's like almost like Overwatch tier, where like you play this set, this is like
this is 20. I mean, I was going to say 2018 Overwatch League, but this still happens in certain teams where teams pick up one player with one purpose in mind. Like, you remember fucking 2018 Outlaws with the Mendo Farah specialist? This is the extent at which I think these teams are going to start to struggle pretty soon with their the dependency on certain agents. I mean, last week we discussed it. I can't remember who put the tweet out, but they were saying like you can't really just play one agent anymore. You need to expand your agent pool out quite drastically.
Also, I think Renegades are such a testament to how being on the right roles can shift everything for your team. I mean, as soon as they switched Retro off the Omen to Jett, that turned the team around. I mean, also
Plus having
they
a
changed
good
the strategy.
style that works for them. The style and the strategy has to complement the roles.
Yeah, I feel like most of the teams that are at the top level, aside from C9, generally like the biggest difference between like when you swap the roles is like C9, like there's a clear difference when you put Mitch on Killjoy versus Mitch on Phoenix. Yes. You know, but oftentimes when I see them swap their roles, as long as like roughly like they have the same complementary strategy, it's not nearly as significant. Though I will admit, Renegades was like a really good example of how big the roles can change things.
I think TSM is a pretty good example as well, because when they have like Sabrosa entering on the Phoenix, they look much more one-dimensional, weren't really getting that much value. As soon as Sabrosa goes over to like the Omen or even the Raze and Triple Duelist, where he plays more of a lurking style, he's not actually an entryer, even though he's playing Duelist, that they get way more value out of him there.
That's fair. That's actually probably true. I feel like it's mixed though. It's like it's like you sort of
there's some teams where, well, for example, like Gen.G with Player One and Mikhail, I think that they're both incredibly good on a range of different roles. Does it matter that much which one they're on? I don't particularly think so. And GMD as well is hyper flexible and can play anything. They're gifted in that way that they have a roster where they can shift the roles. But I think that's led to the trap in their heads that all we have to do is like shuffle the roles around and keep swapping like a carousel, and eventually we'll find the one that works for us, the rotation that works. Whereas instead it's a bit more fundamental than that. It's the way that they think about the game. It's kind of left them behind. But my point was, Bren, that I think even if they make the right changes, that it would still be unreasonable to expect Gen.G to get back into the top 4, because other teams are making great changes as well. They would have to make the good changes, plus then improve a lot in terms of how their strategy works. And it just takes time. Like, I just don't think the time is there at the moment within, I don't know, the next couple of months to be able to get to a top 4 position. Within the next 2 months, considering that we've got like that takes us to the end of January, and there's probably only going to be like two other major tournaments.
Rapid we've been seeing some of these teams change and adapt and improve at. The pace
that always depends on what like the players, like how adaptable those players are, right? Because Gen.G might not have the mindsets that are necessary, like FaZe do, or some of the, or even 100 Thieves or stuff like that, to actually find those adaptations fast enough.
Yeah, it's not all players will be capable, but
that's a good point.
I think 2 months is a long time. I mean, I think I don't know what's happened in the last 2 months of North America.
Honestly, not that much.
Valorant,
like literally just First Strike and Renegades NSG.
Yeah,
right.
That's it. Those are the only two major tournaments. Yeah, a bunch of tier 2 tournaments, but in terms of like where the top teams have actually competed, scrims, sure. But in terms of like what we've actually seen, very little. And I don't see any reason why that would change coming up to the winter break, honestly, either. So
you wanted to say something?
Oh, I actually do think I don't know about top 4 for Gen.G, but I do think it's pretty reasonable for them to get back into like the top 6 or so. I mean,
I can agree with that.
The skill on the team is so high. I mean, that's the thing. Like the players they have are actually all really good. They've really just missed the mark and it is actually worrying what you guys were just talking about, Brennon and Avast, with the player mentalities, that to us at least, watching from the outside, the problems have been fairly obvious for the past couple months, yet they have still just been on this slope downwards. They've just been tumbling down the hill as we've been calling out what to do to help, and they just keep rolling down. I mean, it's so I am a little worried in that they haven't actually been able to read it themselves. Like, are they watching?
Certain environments can amplify those feelings. You know, players can just get in a little prayer circle of just circle jerking of like, oh, we got to do this. We got to do this. Next guy. We got to do this. We got to do this. Next guy. We got to do this. And it just never fixes until the guy comes in and is like, guys, stop jerking each other off. Okay. Like we got to do something different here. Yeah. And
what kind of prayer circles were you in?
Well, you know, I guess it was wrong to say prayer circle. I guess the prayers in this case were praying for better results. Maybe, I don't know.
Okay,
but like you get what I'm going for, and that like they get stuck in that sort of amplification loop, and like sometimes you just need a new mindset. It's like when teams, like, great example is just like when teams are good but they're not winning.
Yeah, we can see all of the hands.
Yep,
we can see all the hands.
Yeah, they're all touching each other's shoulders. They're not so much praying, I would say, not some non-intensive praying, but like, good teams that sometimes still make swaps for after not winning because they just need to change. They just need a different perspective from like a player role or a different style, even if the team is really good, because you just can't seem to get to have the pieces click. Because at the end of the day, team-based gameplay is just a lot of persona and like personality working together to actually make the best result.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just don't have the right pieces.
I'd like to see as well them, even if they're not willing to make role changes again, move Sean onto a role like Raze, where he can actually use his utility to be able to help the team and to be able to help himself win the aim duels and create useful situations for himself and his team. His Raze, though, at the moment doesn't look that great. Whenever he plays it on split, doesn't look that great. But I think if you give the guy enough time to be able to learn that agent, he will produce results. I think you look at his utility usage on Sova and how smart he was and how good the aim is. I feel like it's only a matter of time until he actually gets good at that agent. It can't be one that he struggles with forever. It just doesn't make any sense that he would not grasp the agent given enough time. And that would really help them a lot. If they're not willing to move him back over to the Sova, if he really wants to play Duelist, which he tweeted and said that he did, then I think that's the direction to go with, even though it looks weak at the moment.
Let's let's move on to Immortals as a team. This is I mean they ended up qualifying. They ended up qualifying. Shot Up didn't play for a lot of the matches. I think he played for some of the maps, right? He was coming in and out.
Some of them.
Shanks ended up subbing in and yet still qualifying when one of your major pieces in terms of a lot of your success, I think, that primary duelist role that Shot Up was filling. If you, it's a hard role. I don't know, actually. What do you guys think? Is it one of the easiest roles to fill, or is it one of the hardest roles to replace just another player internally in terms of the executes, or does it not even matter in terms of the role itself?
He's playing Reyna. I think it's.
I would argue that was probably the best role that could be possible for them to need a sub on. Was that
except for the skill of Shot Up? That's the issue, right? It's like you're subbing out a guy who's averaging like, I don't know, 0.9 KPR or something. The last time I looked at his stats, and so you're missing a lot of firepower there. But in terms of like the coordination with the rest of the team, a lot of it is just fundamentals and getting value out of your agent. And I think they did a pretty good job at it, honestly. Like the way Shanks was playing with the team, what is she drinking your hot toddy?
No, that's not a hot toddy. I'm not drinking on the
right
job.
Now, right? Okay, I was about to say, like, damn, started early today. With
the hot toddy just to start the podcast.
The honey Jack Daniels.
Yeah. I think they did a pretty good job with it, though. Like, they looked fairly coordinated with Shanks, which is strange to say, considering that Shanks, the last time we saw him as well, was wildly inconsistent with how he synced up with other people and was like ego dueling and everything. This was some of the best performance I've seen from Shanks. I was really impressed by how he fit into this roster.
To be fair, he didn't really stop ego dueling at points. I feel like he kept doing it. It just was working a little bit more when he was playing. But they definitely looked different between the first and second day of playing with Shanks, like a lot, and a lot of it just comes down to like what I think it's the double J difference. It's the JC Stani and the JMO difference. When JMO shows up, because he's like 12 years old, he's like fresh out the womb, like the umbilical cord has just been cut, and that's the same thing for like Marv as well. It's like when these young guys
not 12
actually,
though, is he?
No, he's like 16, 17. He's like Makalov.
Is he actually?
I think
he's young.
I think
I don't know
young.
how young.
Yeah, he's like, but it's the same. But it's how I feel about all these young guys, where like they're so good, but because they're just so young, they just beef sometimes. They just like hard beef.
Yeah, they don't have the experience.
But when J-Bone was showing up, like the team looked really, really good. Like their executes were like amazing. JC Stani was getting so much value out of his like paranoia pushes. Like it like so many teams will just like waste their paranoia. And JC Stani, I feel like, had some of the like most successful usage of paranoia I've ever seen out of any Omen player.
Stani's very good. I have been more and more impressed with this guy the more I've watched him. He really is extremely good on this team. Not just in terms of his fragging, which is absolutely up there when it comes to IGLs, but he's always in the right place at the right time. If he needs to anchor a site, he's taking the right angles, he's hitting the shots, he's delivering for the team. When he's on a retake or helping a teammate, he's always there with the perfect spacing to be able to trade them out. And it makes the roster so functional to have a player like that that's always doing the right thing with their teammates. Like you can play with a person like Shanks who's never played with your team before because you always know that they have Stanny or Gangster behind them to be able to bail them out of a situation, hold an angle for them, trade for them. It makes life so much easier. You just watch this roster and they are the backbone that makes it click.
Yeah. God, yeah, Gangsta is so consistent as
He
well.
is, yeah.
Yeah,
Statistically,
Gangsta,
Gangster is in. I don't know what it is, but in terms of the amount of rounds that he's played across his entire career, like you can just tell the consistency because his numbers are definitely above average. Like I'm not going to say that they're top of the line when it comes to the roles he plays, but when you check him out, he is one of the only players in that top, like above the kind of like 50th percentile that is performing really well. Sorry, the cat's going fucking ape shit. But yeah, he
the hot toddy,
in
dude.
terms of the consistency, because he's played more games than almost any other player that's in that top list.
Yeah, and this was kind of the thing coming into this new Immortals roster, right? Like when you're looking at it, you just the foundation of Stani and Gangsta is so good that if one or both of their upcoming duelists pay off and they are really good, then they're in position to be a legit top contender again. And that is happening. I mean, Shot Up is... It's very unfortunate that he was ill and couldn't play. Hope he's, feeling better. And obviously, of course, definitely better for the main event by that point. But if he's playing at the level where we've seen him in previously, and especially if he can peak like how he did at the Renegades tournament, and then if JMO can find the consistency, because he has had some sick maps. I mean, he has had some just destructive maps, but then other maps, it's just
his hands fall off. His hands just literally fall off, and he's just just nubbing.
Yeah. He's literally the lowest player when it comes to stats on the roster for this tournament.
Yeah, and then he'll just
and
drop.
That's extremely unusual.
And then what was the one game he dropped like 26 and 3?
Yeah, it's always Haven and it's always on defense as well, is what I've noticed. He turned up like that against LG and he turned up like that against TSM as well. I'm not convinced that TSM were playing their best game on Haven. That was the game where Hayes tweeted his bourbon bottle. And then they came out and they lost 13-2 on a map that they've previously been incredible at. So not convinced that was some serious.
I think like Wardell said like my teammate was drunk or something. Like he said something like that.
What the fuck is wrong with North American Valorant?
They're all just like fucking cool.
They're playing for seeding.
Like, dude, I don't even care anymore.
Yeah,
they're literally playing BO3s and BO5s for seeding, while Europe over there is like, can I get a crumb of a second map, please? For seeding, I swear, just give me a BO3, anything.
Oh man, yeah, Europe, it's definitely life or death over the European scene comparatively.
Yeah. Definitely does. I mean, you said this the other day. Sorry, Josh, go ahead. I'm going to derail this.
Oh, well, I was going to say, for Immortals, though, the key to breaking into that top 6, because I think for me, they're probably around like the 7th, 8th position in North America right now. The key to breaking into the higher echelons is to get more out of JMO more consistently. Yeah. That is the big deal.
100%.
Like, that's what makes a huge difference for them in this game. I mean, JC Stanley's having great performances, but I don't really expect that to be a one-off fluke. I think that they've got the system in place so that that's going to work. Assuming that Shotup's going to come back in and his health problems aren't an issue, which I really hope is the case, then JMO is the answer. If you can get big value out of him, you're going to start stepping up to the level where you can compete with the top 5, the top 4.
Especially since their team is so overall functional. With Shot Up, or like even if they end up having to use Shanks long term, which who knows if they would have to. We're hoping Shot Up comes back because he's really good. He's kind of he is. It was kind of silly because you get the narrative start going. It's like, oh, Shanks, he's just like so like imagine Immortals with Shanks, but it's like no, Shot Up's actually really, really good. Yeah. And like you definitely don't want to lose him. I think he's like one of the best riflers. If some people have said the best rifler, but I don't know if there's like a consensus on who's the best at anything yet at this early in the stage, like the game, but like one of the best riflers in NA. And so if they can just get JMO to show up, because your Jett player has to be, it's just one of those, it's not like your IGL like that can like sort of like sit towards the bottom, but they're doing great with like their setups and the utility usage. JMO has to be up there. He cannot ever be bottom fragging continuously.
I've just thought as well, I've just remembered what I normally think watching JMO too. And this is in such stark contrast to his upping destruction on Haven defense against LG and TSM. But when you watch most of the time with JMO, what makes me mauled like nothing else is the amount he picks up the op and does nothing with it. And yet his rifling and his entry play is actually pretty smart. His rifling is not the best in the world, but it's pretty good. And when he's part of the Immortals system, he can make space for them. He can go in first. Stanio against a trades the kill. He gets value with that. Or he's in on attack and he's dashing into the B side, creating space for his team. And yet you see him in these OT rounds, particularly where he buys the glass cannon op. That's where it's the most pronounced. So those are the moments that stick in my mind, but it happens all the time. But he will purchase the op and do nothing with it and end up in a retake scenario where he has to now try and retake. It puts Gangster or Stanny in a weird position because then they're kind of entrying with him kind of behind on the op, holding angles for them. And it just messes up their entire structure. I think in the short term, while JMO's, I guess, trying to get that consistency, just get him rifling more, please. Get him off the op. If he's not comfortable on that map, and even comfortable, take that out of it. If the coaches haven't seen ridiculous value from him on the op on that map, get him rifling, because that seems to be where you can get consistent value from him, even if he's not hitting his shots. Whereas on the op, it's just literally zero value if he's not hitting the shots.
Yeah, I do wonder if he's one of the players who might just need a little bit of time. If he is a player who's a bit nervous in this position because he wasn't a top-level player in CS. He was still kind of on his way up in the ESEA ranks. And even previous to being on Immortals, he played like only a couple, maybe like 2 or 3 recorded matches of Valorant. And I was kind of hype off those matches, and I thought he definitely had potential. But I do wonder if he gets a little nervous because even there are some moments when you're watching him play when the camera's on him, the way he... This sounds kind of silly, maybe, but like the way he moves his mouse sometimes indicates to me that he might be a little bit nervous. Not that he's like doing the shaking around like in an earthquake, but he just sometimes the way I play, it indicates to me that there is a slight bit of nerve with him, but he has the raw potential. It's just a matter of honing it.
He reminded me of the Baby Bay op for a while. Like the way that he opt reminded me of just like how, like, I don't know, cushiony, like pillowy Baby Bay op was for a long time until he started getting a lot more value out of it, like recently. It just reminded me, it's very similar, I feel like, because sometimes he'll just like go hard and other times he'll just like constantly take an aggro peek or die, or he'll just like he just misses shots on angles that he's holding. He'll hold an angle and he'll just miss a shot. Like
he holds close angles, so he makes the shots difficult for himself. And they're the kind of angles where you see the really good Jett oppers holding in North America, but then he just won't deliver. He like won't find a pick, and when he has to back off. And you compare that to like, I know it seems like maybe an unfair comparison, but Waddell is like the premier example of this. He'll hold that same angle, he'll get a pick, he'll fall off, and he might even get a second. Whereas JMO, most of the time, is going to whiff that first shot and end up having to dash out. And then he's just playing retake because you've lost all of that control because you were holding the area with the op. You weren't holding it with any other utility or any other person. So he's given up a bunch of map control and not taking the shot. And now he's using the op for the retake. It seems to happen with so consistently. Like either JMO needs to take easier angles to hit shots more consistently or just rifle more. And I'd rather have him rifling.
And that's what happened to Baby Bay too, I think. He would just miss shots on angles all the time when he was opping. So maybe they do like a Baby Bay VOD review and figure out what did Baby Bay do differently to just like not miss shots on the angles he was holding anymore. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, let's talk about TSM as the winners of the closed event. As much as that might mean not that much, but TSM did end up winning the second first strike qualifier. This is a team that I personally had written off before coming into the first strike event. Or not written off, but I definitely didn't expect them to be performing as well. I didn't expect them to really be still in the top 4. I thought they were going to start to slip, particularly because of the op nerfs. And they looked, quite one-dimensional. I just didn't have faith in their ability to actually adapt and improve over time. But this team is looking quite good. They're looking like they're raring to go, moving into the first strike main event. Definitely, I wouldn't say one of the favorites, but definitely one of the top spots at least. Ended up winning the second first strike qualifier, I should say. So Go on, Josh.
The narrative coming into First Strike, like you said, was TSM should look weaker. If they're able to adapt and remain an elite level team, that's incredibly impressive. And while there have been some impressive points, I think it bears like just looking back over the entirety of First Strike, they've beaten all of the teams that were significantly below them, but they lost that series to 100 Thieves, where 100 Thieves just adapted and improved and then beat them fairly comfortably the second time around. And they lost a pretty close series to Cloud9 as well. So they have slipped. They just haven't slipped as much as people might have expected. They don't look like the second best team in it, or the potentially best team, like people originally said. Team in NA currently. They're not your favorites to win. They're not your favorites to even take second. Remember that this is the second qualifier that they've won, i.e. 4 teams already got through ahead of them. So really, they're qualifying in 5th place here.
I like triple duelist for TSM though. I will say, but with Sabrosa on Raze versus Reyna, I actually think triple duelist for this team works. They have enough fraggers to where, like, especially if they have Sabrosa on the Raze, I actually think that they can actually pull that off pretty frequently.
I think there's a lot of things I like about TSM though as well. I mean, the fact that Wardell still gets value playing some quite, at this point in the game, at least unorthodox angles with the operator. Like he gets away with murder sometimes, and it's just because he's so good, he's so skilled on that role that he can still fulfill that purpose that he originally did. And honestly, I feel like it's almost to the benefit of TSM that they are one of the only teams capable of doing that, because you're not really going to be expecting. I mean, you should when you're playing against TSM, but it's not like every team has an opper in their playbook these days. Like, a lot of teams have been trending away from it, but TSM still have it as a staple when it comes to their general game plan.
Yeah, what else? Freak.
I mean, he is. I mean, he is just still the best opper in NA right now. I actually do, despite how good his opping is, I actually do think there are times on attack, though, where I feel that he's using it a bit too much, and I would like to see him rifle a bit more, because his rifling is insanely good. I mean, I think his rifling is probably a bit underrated at this point. It's genuinely top tier. And I think there are a lot of moments where they can get value out of the Jett rifle entrying.
But they actually do as well, though. I mean, the thing is, they've transitioned to that so much more than they used to. It used to be Wardell on the orb every attacking round that they could.
That is,
and now it's what, like maybe 30, maybe like 30 to 50% of the time.
Yeah, I would say
get the orb,
like
they do
half. Like, it depending on the map, it's like half the time they do.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of like that. Like, you let Wardell pick it up when he's really feeling it, or when he has a read on his opponent where he thinks he can get value out of it, but he's not trying to. I don't get the feeling anyway that he's trying to force it at this point. I get the feeling that he's very comfortable rifling and Jett entrying when required, and he's only picking it up when he feels like it's going to get big value.
Have you been following the TSM games close enough to like get a read on that being like an economy thing with the changes to it? Like, are they? Do you feel like they're forcing it when they've just been able to afford it, or?
No, sometimes they can afford it and they don't go for it. That's why I'm saying I don't think that they're forcing it every single time. Like, it's not just to do with the economy. It's also to do with like what they want to do in the round, which I love that. And I also think that, you know, you could very reasonably have said, I wonder how Wardell is going to be when it comes to changing his style and rifling more. And the answer to that question was fucking incredible. He's actually incredible.
I think they like having the rifle with him more because they've been playing this triple duelist strat, and they want to have more options to just get into the site and like just pop the Phoenix flash from drone and then just peek, versus having to set up Wardell on like an angle or like have him hold close. I think the rifle fits him better with the style they're currently playing and the comps that they're playing. So it's probably a conscious decision for sure.
Yeah, I would like to see Sabrosa play more of the Rays. Sabrosa still, for me, has just been the standout of this team since the beginning of all the First Strike qualifiers. His lurking is...
But it was incredible on the Omen.
He really was, though.
Unbelievably good on the Omen.
He really was.
And I don't know whether... I mean, I'm speculating that the TSM changes are because of the Sentinel nerf, not because of Sabrosa, they had some issue with him on the Omen. I don't think that that's the case. But the timings that Sabrosa was finding on Omen were just superb. They were like nobody else. He was immediately the best Omen in NA. Like in terms of playing that lurky style, he was incredible. And so to me, even though the triple duelist does make sense because Raze is still a fantastic lurker, you get all of that extra utility to be able to use as well. And you have managed to deal with the information loss of the Sentinel because Drone plays aggro enough and Sabrosa gathers information from his lurks to be able to mitigate that. It's feasible. It's viable. I quite like what TSM are doing. But they looked magical for a couple of moments there when they were playing the Sabrosa Omen. It does limit them in terms of duelists that they want to run because Drone is then like he was playing the Breach sometimes and then was going over to the Phoenix. They don't seem as flexible when Sabrosa's not there to be able to fill in different roles for them. But goddamn, if that isn't like a bit of a missed opportunity, I think.
It is. It does make me wonder if they can't you try Drone on the Raze. See what he'd be able to do on that. Though he does seem to just really like
he just seems to love Phoenix, doesn't he?
Loves the Phoenix.
I mean, I don't really mind. I don't mind having an over reliance on Phoenix depending on how like because they're really good at utilizing the flashes with Drone and also he's one of the few. I think he's also one of the Phoenixes. When you watch a lot of Phoenixes play and they just like frag out, they get their molly back after getting like 2 kills or whatever. Like Drone doesn't just throw his molly wherever he wants. He actually uses the molly for a specific tactical purpose often instead of just chunking it at the first opportunity. Like he actually like a lot of Phoenixes I feel like just throw the molly whenever. Like they'll just use it as a heal. They'll just like toss it. But they actually use Drone's molly for real purposes and locking down an area when they push or allowing him to just like push through it versus just throwing it as like a heal pack, which is what I feel like a lot of Phoenixes do.
I like that the nerfs to TSM's style, where it was previously a lot around Wardell's opping and like that creating picks for them. I like that their adaptation has showcased their teamwork more. They really have extremely good teamwork in terms of how they monitor areas of the map that they know that they didn't cover a certain area of the map, so someone could be through. They communicate that someone is watching that area. When they go and push in, the spacing is always great. When someone is under pressure on the site, the teammates are flooding in quickly to be able to help them and relieve that pressure. They have really good coordination between the members of their team. Even the members that aren't normally, known as the big fraggers like Hayes and Cutler do their jobs really, really well. Hayes is constantly getting his stats boosted when he plays against teams like FaZe because he is so aware of where people are going to be pushing and he's able to shut down these pushes pretty consistently just by holding an area of the map. So Bros is always really aware of lurks. I love that the op nerf has showed us more of what's good about TSM. They clearly aren't like a bad team that was carried by Wardell's opping. Or that was like the vast, far end of what would be a hot take about TSM in the previous patch. But you can really see now the solid foundation that they're built on and the reason that they've been at the top for so long. They're still playing a style that isn't. I don't think everyone's going to be playing the TSM style in 2 years. I think it's not the future of Valorant to be playing the flash peaks and to not use very much utility and to be, just relying on your fundamentals. I think there's so much potential in this game to play more of a utility-based style, basically. And I think that's the only thing that they're just really missing out on right now is like, it's just the meta, honestly. I think they've just got a really different read on the meta to where the actual direction of the game is headed. But it's working for them now.
Let's take a shift. I get a lot of emails on a regular basis from people.
Okay, weird flex. But
This is one of the topics that people have been begging me to cover. Begging me, and I wasn't going to include it. I wasn't going to include it, but I figured, you know what? So many people wanted to hear about it. Complexity. What a bust, huh?
Oh, the tweet.
What a bust.
Oh,
the cosmic
the
curse.
Yeah.
What is
Tragic,
going on
really.
with complexity? Yeah.
I mean, they had a great showing and at the first qualifier, and I was really impressed with the team. I was impressed with the new pickups. Jonah looked like a rising star player. And then they just said that they were going to be the favorites to get out of their group, and they just lose to Serenity and get knocked out.
Yeah.
Tragic, curse-like fashion.
Was that the social media account that said this?
No, it was an
on
interview with
Reddit.
their coach.
It was, with the coach. Their coach said like we're the favorites to get out of our
Yeah,
group.
Ruin said it. But so the weird thing is, when that headline gets posted, it looks like a cosmic curse. But when you read the actual article, he was just talking about the fact that people normally underrate them. They don't think that they're a very good team. He was saying, we have a lot of confidence in ourselves. I don't see how you can look at our group and not say that we're the favorites. And when you look at their group, they were the favorites in their group. Like, this isn't some hot lava take for the complexity coach to make.
Yeah.
They're playing in a group with Moon Raccoon, Serenity, and then who else was in that group? It was Moon Raccoon, Serenity, and Gen.G, who had been massively
Gen.G,
underperforming.
yeah.
And then Complexity just lose to Serenity, who have never really put up any great results in Tier 2. And then they lose to Moon Raccoons, who are a dangerous team. Like, there's no way in which Complexity were massive favorites here. But if you came in, judging on prior performances over the last, like, month, yeah, I think it's reasonable to say Complexity were the favorites.
It is reasonable. It's just amusing. It just would happen. That is just how the cosmic energies work. That's how they align. You just can't say that you're the favorite. You're just gonna go out immediately.
Well, you can say it, but you just can't lose. You know, I feel like coaches say that sort of shit all the time, and it just works. It's literally just the 50-50. You know, you're flipping the coin. It's like, am I winning or am I losing? If I win, good. If I lose, well, unlucky. You know, it's it's the 50-50 with confidence. Like, you're gonna have to just own it. You either just don't say anything because you're a little pussy and you're afraid to like be like, oh, they lost.
Oh, there go the sponsors.
Oh my! Oops. Sorry, sponsors. Sorry, Jack Daniels honey flavor for that. I know you guys don't want to be associated now, but I do think that like sometimes you just got to be a coach. You just got to own like, yeah, I'm gonna be confident, or you're just a quiet little church mouse that says nothing. You know,
this is the kind of thing that breeds superstition in coaches as well for the rest of their careers. Like, he's never doing another interview again, is he? He's never doing another interview.
Well, see, if he's alpha, he'll do another interview and he'll just realize like, yeah, I lost. You know, it happens.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Just
you just
double down.
lose to Serenity.
So you're the favorite again.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't realize what the time was because I've been in a state of mind that is neither here nor there. But how long have we been recording for? Like an hour and a half?
I don't know, hour 20.
Yeah, something like that.
20?
Hour 26.
We've been,
Hour 20.
we're only on North America at the moment. Okay, let's get through this then a little bit faster. Biggest surprises, biggest disappointments in North America thus far. We're going to go around in a little semicircle formation. We're all going to talk about the biggest surprises, biggest disappointments. And Connor, as you're our esteemed guest, I'm going with you first again. Definitely not because you're at the top left of my screen and I just looked there first. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, I prefer, this is the esteemed corner. So
It is, yeah.
I think I was actually, for disappointment, I'll start with disappointment and box. And box. I was disappointed on two fronts. Disappointed because Poach was gone and they actually are kind of a freak of beast at times with Android. Android popping like the craziest
He tied
game
the
ever.
record.
Yeah.
He tied the record for most kills in a match ever. Like by anybody anywhere in the world in a pro game, he tied.
He was literally nuts. And then he exploded like a neutron star collapsing on itself because you can't do that twice and then lose the first. You can't do it the first time then lose and then do it again. You know, it's like it's just not possible. It's just not possible. Like then you just explode under the weight of your own balls. Like it's just not possible. But like I was secondly disappointed because the stream swapped off the Andbox match when I was watching. Dino actually trade like kills. The coach of Andbox trade kills effectively versus NRG. Like Warden actually was okay. He did exactly what was required of your like boomer coach Brimstone player to just show up and be like a hard training bot and get one kill, just frag and just pop smokes, and that's it. That's all you want, and he did it.
Yeah.
So I was disappointed on that. And for surprises, I'm gonna put a proto. I'm gonna put a proto for LG. I think if we shouldn't call for roster changes because I already pretty convinced they're gonna commit. But if C9 were to pick up a proto and drop like Mitch, I think C9 is like I would be very tickled. I would be very tickled
Tickled,
if I was a
eh?
T9 fan, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tease,
I would be
like
tickled
tease.
upon that.
Okay.
Mm.
What about you, Wyatt?
What about me? Biggest disappointment. I mean, it's got to be Cloud9. I mean, I know that's the obvious one,
Yeah.
but the trajectory of my emotional connection with Cloud9 went from just disdain to just a fond love throughout the first qualifier, and then just a crushing heartbreak.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I feel very emotionally attached to
That
the
is a
Cloud9
classic
team.
teenage love story.
This is also a classic C9 fan story too. Of any team they field. This is a C9 story.
So
is this actually your mug, and you just didn't tell me?
No.
You bought this when the middle portion. You just...
So I know it's the obvious one, but I just have to. I just have to because they toyed with my poor heart.
Yeah.
And biggest surprise, I mean, honestly, I'm trying to think. I mean, I might have to give it to Renegades. I really just might have to. Kind of another obvious one, but I mean, my God, it's just a ridiculous turnaround. They went from losing their own tournament in just horrific fashion, just wrecked out of their own title tournament, and then qualify the next week with role swaps and then just playing this explosive, crazy style. I mean, I don't think anyone saw that coming. I didn't see that coming. Pretty absurd that even happened. Honestly, it's insane to have Renegades in the top 8.
Josh?
I mean, obviously, I would say biggest surprise and disappointment at Cloud9, but I'll come up with some new ones because Wyatt's already done that one.
You can say the same one.
Nah, it's all right.
Don't be a C9 simp.
I think it was incredibly surprising the development that FaZe made over the course of this tournament. Like I was ready for Wyatt to say it at any moment. At any moment, I was ready and waiting for him to say it. Yeah, to say it, and it never came, and possibly it will never come right now. But
wait, what about the C9 it? When does the C9 doomsday
I mean, that
it
is
clock
I mean,
start
the
ticking
C9
down?
has been ticking for a long time. The problem with the C9 it is that it has been said many times
I
before,
think I already
and yet
said it.
Cloud9 will never act on it, and therefore it is irrelevant.
Yeah. Yeah. All true.
That biggest disappointment. I'm going to throw you guys a bit of a wildcard pick here. Dignitas with, because even though Maka looked like a great pickup.
A fast reaction there.
Got hit by a gust of wind.
I wanted to stretch at the same time, but then with the force of Josh's words hit me, and then at the same time, so I had to like both at the same time. Because I agree with Josh.
Maka was great. Odorous was extremely underwhelming, and the team as a whole was very underwhelming.
Yeah.
Sam moving over to the Reina, I don't think really helped that team. The information game looked a lot worse than it did during Pop Flash, and because we had so many, good expectations for a team that beat TSM twice over in the course of Pop Flash, very next big tournament that they perform in, they look like they're not even in the top 12, in my opinion. I mean, they're somewhere between the 12th and 16th best team in NA currently, like over the past 3 months, despite the fact that they have 2 BO3 wins over TSM in Pop Flash, which is within the last 3 months at the recording of this video. So that is kind of wild. The fact that they look like they're on such a good trajectory to head upwards, and they've just kind of underwhelmed. It hasn't been disastrous, but it's just been sodden, underwhelming behavior. They just feel like, they feel they feel like they're drenched and wet. You know, like when you're in a thunderstorm and you're just plodding along and your jeans are changed in. And you're like, oh, this is so much worse than I thought it would be. I'm just so fucking wet. Yeah. Like that's what I feel when I watch Dignitas. For some reason, the word sodden I think really does apply to them.
Yeah. No, I understand. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Jack Daniels. For me, I'm going with...
No, Beth. I don't feel wet when I watch them. No, that's different. No. They appear.
Jack Daniels.
Anyway, for me, fucking what TSM? Sure. I didn't really have any. How do I word this?
You are so eloquent. That's what I love about working
Yeah,
with you.
you know, yeah, perfect for the hosting role at 9 o'clock in the morning. I think I was one of the biggest haters of TSM. Maybe I still am. But they did surprise me. But in terms of their ability to pivot and adapt, I think, off of the back of the operator nerfs, and for them to sort of retain relevancy in the top 4, this is something I didn't expect them to be able to do. But also, they are my biggest disappointment because they retained relevancy in the top 4, and I'm a big TSM hater. So, so they're one and the same, you know.
You were hoping you would get to that Schadenfreude of watching them slip down the rankings, and
Yeah, I'm kind of like the antithesis of the North American commentator. I'm like you know, you got according to the Reddit narrative, which is like all the North American commentators are just TSM fans. They have immense TSM bias. I'm the exact opposite of that. I'm there to bring balance to it. It's my major play to eventually get hired by Riot. You know,
right?
Eventually, they're going to bring me in to balance it out. Yeah,
you're a genius.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they want. They want Redditors at their most important positions.
Exactly.
That's what they really want.
Can't spell
Isn't that
Redditor
really
without
bad,
Riot. If you kind of mix the words around in some
if you
kind of
hit
way.
yourself in the head a couple times, then it's there.
Riot.
I mean, it is there. It's
Riot.
just the letters are there. They just make sense.
I mean, it's maybe if you're a little sodden and you know, then you just
Sodden in the brain.
sodden in the brain.
It's time to speed run this. Much like the EU formats have been sped run this entire time when we're running through First Strike, we're going to speed run the European segments.
That is so rude to Europe.
of First Strike.
It's true.
Lexi played in, but
Yeah, I mean,
Heretics,
it is true though, and one of the things as well is the EU gets a lot less traction compared to a lot of the other regions for whatever reason.
I think there's like 20
never
minutes of
broadcast,
footage
there's
of
no
EU.
fans.
There's 20 minutes of footage total. Like it's like the difference between the first child and the third child in a family in terms of the amount of photos that there are. It's like in A there's like decades of footage, and then then EU there's like literally 20 minutes. It's like, oh guys, guess what? You know, Guild got DQ'd. Wow, and then that's it. You're done.
Yeah.
That's EU.
So Ninjas in Pajamas and Guild, they're gone. I mean, they didn't qualify. They went out in the best of ones. The best of
Really
the
good
ones.
stuff.
The best part
Good
is,
stuff.
anybody know what happened? No.
No,
Well, we know what happened
no
with Guild.
idea.
We know what happened with Guild, but not with NIP.
Well, except we don't even know what happened with Guild because they got DQ'd, and
they
that
got
was the
DQ'd.
big
They have the
drama.
footage of them using they have the footage.
But that
of,
wasn't
It's
when
the
they
20
went out.
minutes of footage.
Yeah, that wasn't when
Oh my
but that
God.
was
The
the
next
next
one,
one.
when they actually lost, there's no footage of them losing.
Yeah.
The only footage we have of them in First Strike is of them winning.
Well, you know, just sometimes unlucky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess unlucky, but the Riot devs or like one of the Riot devs posted about the formats, right? And
Yes.
I didn't see this. I didn't catch this. Do we have the
It was
post?
There was a post
It was a
on
good
Reddit.
post.
On
Wasn't it a Discord post that was
Or was it just-
screenshotted? And
It was a Reddit post that was
tweeted.
screenshotted.
I thought it was a Reddit post
Okay.
screenshot. But one of the devs basically said, I mean, they just admitted, like, yeah, we knew the format's bad. We're not doing it again. I mean, they didn't, which is nice. They
Yeah.
didn't try to throw out, you know, they didn't try to.
Well, you know.
Well, we thought, but no, they're just, it was
Yeah,
bad.
it's bad.
We messed up and we won't do it again.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
reasonable.
about
Yes,
all you
but-
can expect. That's
What I hope is that they realize that whatever decision was made or whoever was in charge of the decision making needs a bit of a slap around the chops, because it's all well and good saying it's bad and we won't do it again, but when you're internally within the company, you don't need to state this publicly. It's perfectly fine what they actually put out there in the public, but internally in the company, why did this happen? Like, what were the
If
priorities?
Josh was in
that
charge,
you-
an internal review would be launched.
Yeah, no, it really
Internal
would, though,
investigation.
because and I would try and get to the cause of this, because it's clear that certain priorities were put ahead of others, right? Whether that be the look, they say, I don't want to try and justify the format or the context as to why we landed on this format for EU. It would look very defensive, and honestly, it's a bit pointless because they just are going to change it in the future, which it's fine. You don't need to say that publicly. It would come across as defensive. But internally within the company, I want to make sure that they don't prioritize dumb shit in the future and just keep running BO1s. And it's not just BO1s. It's like the like format for seeding and stuff as well. There's so much stuff that is just
the rule set is different too.
The rule
in
set being
region.
different all over the place. There's a lot of stuff from this tournament, not just in Europe, but all over the place, where they've just the execution is all over the place. I think because they delegate to different, like Riot EU gets to decide something, Riot NA gets to decide something, Riot Brazil gets to decide something else, and there's no cohesion here
Well, I
between
think it also depends
worldwide.
on probably the broadcasters, right? The the
TO
broadcast
as well.
partners, the TOs, right? Because whoever's running the qualifier is also presumably having some input in terms of the format and what works for their broadcast. And their broadcast
and also what their
capabilities.
back end can handle too.
Yeah.
Like presumably some people can't handle. Some companies are so small that they wouldn't be able to handle 512 team BO3 brackets. They wouldn't be able to allocate the resources in terms of administration, or they don't, literally their website doesn't work like that or whatever.
Yeah.
And also how many games are casted. Because I guess for EU, they're just like, yeah, like we can cast some of these NA games, especially when we get the quarters, but EU, yeah, we just don't have anybody for those. So no footage for EU.
Because the production is so good for Europe. It's in a studio. It's awesome to watch the matches. The replays are fantastic. They've got secondary observers doing free cam footage so that the replays are different to what you actually watched on stream, which is like a level up from anything that's ever been done in North America, actually, as far as I can remember. And yet that has come at the cost of not being able to watch the majority of the matches. Like, that's not an acceptable compromise, in my opinion, when Europe has already been just fisted repeatedly.
It's been fixed. Fisted?
Yeah.
Strong wording.
It's like Punch and Judy.
Daniels flashes at the bottom of the screen. There's a sponsor plug right there. EU was fisted. Sponsored by Jack Daniels.
We're gonna have to open a Patreon to get paid.
Yes, they have.
Unbelievable.
I never get sponsored with this language being thrown around.
I truly believe it, though.
Just like I fist both handles of my Jack
Okay.
Josh, go on.
Right.
The love and care that has been applied to North America is just utterly absent over in Europe, and it's hurting it's not hurting the player base, but it's hurting the viewer base for sure. Like, people give less of a fuck about Europe, despite the fact it has probably got the better players in it overall, probably got the better teams in it overall, and the way that they play the game is so interesting and different. Does anyone watch it? Does anyone give a fuck? Nope, because you can't watch the games anyway, so it doesn't make any difference whether you watch like the actual games that are broadcast, because you're like, who the fuck are not Penky? I've never seen them before because they've never been on the broadcast. Oh, Purple Cobras, who the fuck are they? Never seen them on the broadcast before. It's painful.
You're gonna blow something. Chill out. Okay, just calm.
Veins are popping out.
But I am angry about this because when the first international LAN actually happens, people are going to not have a clue who half of the players are, because they won't have watched Brazilian Valorant. They won't have watched Korean Valorant. They won't have watched European Valorant. And if you really believe that more than 50% of the teams are going to be NA in any reasonably formatted big international tournament, you're bonkers. I would be very surprised if 50% of the teams were NA. I think it's going to be a smaller portion. So then you're going to be watching a broadcast where more than half the teams, like 2/3 of the teams in any, final bracket of an international tournament, people just have no idea who they are.
Yeah.
Like this lack of foundation in the scene at the moment really does hurt them long term in terms of building fan bases. There's so much to love in the other regions, and people just aren't being exposed to it.
But we really don't even know how good, like, when we make a qualification saying, yeah, Europe, if we base it off historically with tac shooters and their current, some of the play we've seen, like, they're looking pretty good. But do we really know how good they are? Because we can't observe them with our eyeballs. We don't know.
We have the final teams. We know what the kind of main event is going to be looking like, because we've got the final 4 EU teams in. This is, EU is, I mean, I agree on all of the points, but unfortunately it's just something we're going to have to deal with, I suppose, as we're looking forward. But the nature of it is there's going to be a lot of teams where, honestly, the kind of contextual storylines are going to be missing, I suppose. Like, even for the commentators, what the fuck are they going to be saying? Like, well, yeah, I mean, they won 13-11 and that's it.
Like,
literally, though.
JG page and list off.
I mean, that is the unfortunate part. That I was listening to the broadcast last night. I was listening to Nolpenki playing against Enterprise, which is that first, the top one in the bracket there. It's a full Czech team against this Nolpenki team. And Nolpenki were a team that tried to mash together some really good talent. They're like tier 2 talent to try and create a super team, but they never quite made it. They're a team that plays, they're actually the fucking EU FaZe Clan, literally. Not in terms of how the team was created, but in terms of the style they play. They push constantly. They're trying to take aim duels constantly. They really do play the same compositions as the NA teams, which is weird because none of the other EU teams play like that. And they try and make that aspect work, but all the commentators have to say is like, well, last time these two teams played, it went to OT on split. Because they can't talk about the style of the team or anything because they haven't been on the broadcast. And these guys aren't going back to watch fucking games that were broadcast in a tier 2 tournament in June in order to do prep work for a team that they're not expecting to get to the finals. It's unreasonable to ask the casters to do stuff like that.
Yeah, it is going to be a bit of a shame, but I mean, we've got the final teams in.
I will ask. I will ask the question though. With these final 4 teams in, I guess, does it negatively affect the main event, and how much does it that Guild and NIP got upset and the teams we have in instead are?
I think it's annoying for us. Because we feel like, because of the format, we've been cheated of potentially the best possible teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for EU in general, I feel like I don't think Guild. I mean, maybe Ninjas in Pajamas have a sizable fan base in Europe who wanted to watch them, but Guild are like, I don't know. I feel like if you're just a fan of good European Valorant and have been, you're a bit disappointed that Guild aren't in. But the org itself doesn't have any fans, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, presumably they're
that might be a bit
brand
harsh
new
on David
organization.
Beckham, but
they're extremely
I don't
new.
know.
But I mean, missing names of any, like, especially in relation to Valorant right now, where honestly, like, the viewership is like okay, right? But especially when you get to your international events and you want to show like, hey, our scene is thriving, it is doing pretty good. Like, if half of your region is missing name brand teams that can bring some more exposure to you because they got eliminated because they played a coin flip tournament bracket with BO1 and they could only play when the sun was setting on Wednesday, and there was no footage, like, so no one even knows how good these other rest of these teams are that don't have even an org. It's just like some random guy in the Czech Republic that's made a Twitter account and is going to be retweeting their games. Like, there's no, it does hurt your overall, like, what you want your product to be in the long run, but it won't, or not in the long run, in the short run. In the long run, it won't matter, but in the short run, it matters.
We saw long-term effects of this in the Overwatch scene, actually, the kind of neglect being placed in EU.
But that's just because that's like a money thing. So I'm wondering if I guess there's less sponsors in Europe for Valorant,
I think
too.
Yeah, I think the same applies. Yeah, the exact same applies, right?
Yeah.
It's like the amount of sponsors are going to be less because there's less money in the European scene. There's more languages to cover. There's not as many global sponsorship opportunities. The money flows a little bit differently.
True.
Oh, I think, though, that as bad as a BO1 format is, 6 out of the top 8 teams in EU still qualified for the main event, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the only big upsets here that you weren't expecting are Nolpenki and Purple Cobras. Those are the big upset teams. Nolpenki, still, you would have said, had a chance to qualify. Purple Cobras are the big upset team.
Maybe SUMN FC?
NIP. No, Summon FC are like a top 4-5 team
so?
in EU. Definitely. Those guys are really good.
Were we not discussing the fact that they had an easier bracket in the previous episode?
Yeah, they did have an easier bracket. They didn't face G2, Guild, NIP, any of that stuff. But I would have still expected them to qualify the second time around. If they had like the NA format.
Just throwing it out there. I'm just role playing as like a clueless individual.
Yeah. But the teams that you've kind of potentially missed out on are like Opportunists or Exile or those kind of teams who you expected would have maybe made it instead of Nolpenki and Purple Cobras, and then obviously NIP and Guild. Is it going to affect the tournament that much? In terms of like a viewership enjoyment aspect, maybe a little bit, because 2 of the teams should have much easier routes to the semi-final, because the bracket I think has already been released, but G2 look like they're just going to stomp that first game. Whereas if they were playing against an NIP or a Guild, that would be a really good match. So you are kind of, unless Purple Cobras and I think, is it not on VLR?
Not filled in
Someone
on
sent me it.
VLR.
Someone sent me it
Yeah,
last night.
the bracket is still empty. I remember you responded to somebody because you wrote in a bunch of names in MS Paint on what you thought the bracket was going to be.
No, someone literally,
right?
someone literally sent me a bracket. Oh, actually, I think you know where I saw it. I think Ryan tweeted it. So let me see if I can find it. I'm doing some internet sleuthing. Here we go. Okay. So Ryan has drafted a bracket of how it will look unless it's reseeded. So this actually might not be the official bracket, but this is how it would look assuming no reseeding. And you see here that like G2 are playing against Purple Cobras, which should just be basically like a bye straight through. And then FPX against Nolpenki as well. Nolpenki do have some upset potential there, but FPX should kind of just roll on through. Whereas if that had been NIP and Guild that had got through instead, all of the games in the quarters are now really good, really competitive games. So it potentially robs you of two good matches. Alternatively, if they're upsets, I mean, obviously those are ridiculous upsets if they actually do happen, but it seems much more likely that they'll just be kind of preordained.
Yeah, you know what? You might be onto something there, Josh. You might be onto something.
I love listening to Bren. Host take notes. Take notes because Bren's like, I'm role playing as a clueless guy. I'm like, this is how, hosting is just like, you stumble along, just sort of guiding everyone to tell the information. That's Bren's hosting style. I've got that could be okay. That's not too bad.
I've got a unique style of hosting. It's not as polished as some, but it's definitely effective. Tell you that.
It is. It is.
Tell you what, sorry, have we got more European shit to cover? I want to talk about Heretics for a bit. Those guys are good.
Is it on my list?
I don't know. Is it on your list? It should be if it isn't.
It's not on my
list. Heretics is not on the list, but they are good.
They are one of the teams qualified.
Gone in.
Topic.
You have my permission.
They are legit. If you're interested in digging into the European scene, don't even bother watching the Heretics versus Finest game for them to qualify because they shit on them so hard that all you can take away from that match is, goddamn, Heretics are really good at the game, but you can't tell how good they are at all. You'll have to go back and like actually trudge through the former Heretics VODs.
You're gonna have to go scroll through the archives of EU footage, the dusty tomes of like stuff from months ago.
They played a BO1. They played a BO1 against NIP actually earlier this month. That would be good to look at. And they played against like Big, and they played BO3s where they beat Giants and Need More DM, which more reasonable than this. They lost 13-11 in that game to NIP as well. But Heretics players, my God, they have skill. And Nookie in particular is so fun to watch. I am a big fan of this guy from TF2. I played in a team with him. He was insanely skilled in that game. He was one of the people that made it from TF2 because he went and moved on to CSGO and got a roster there. And he's just joined up with a bunch of other people who have insane individual skill. And they've got a great team that they've built around that kind of model as well. They've all got wild aim. And something that I noticed yesterday, they have, you'll actually be able to find it in, maybe not this VOD, but it's in the VOD of Heretics playing against Team Finest. Nookie, at the beginning of the rounds on Bind, backwards bunny hops up sand to avoid pop flashes out of hookah. Like, how fucking weird is that? That is the level that he's like, oh yes, this seems like it would marginally help our default. I shall do this. He sets off his boombot and then he's backwards b-hopping up sand. So
that's what I do.
It's fucking wild to watch him do that.
Really good ignoring Bren there. Bren's just like, yeah, I do that too.
It's just nonsense.
Just sidestep that. Just let it go.
So this actually leads us nicely onto the next conversation, Josh, which is like comparing Europe and NA, as per usual, like we usually do on this podcast. We actually have a topic for it. We'll get to the next one afterwards, which is talking about some of the teams that are disbanding. But yeah, how do we think then the comparisons of EU and NA are stacking up? Because obviously we don't have that much footage to go off when it comes to Europe, but across the board with this standard of gameplay that is occurring at kind of like the bottom of the top 8 in Europe, how does that compare to North America in general?
I mean, I think one of the most noticeable things off the jump, the teams in Europe that didn't make it, that we did get to see, that are rated somewhere in like the top 20, top 25 of EU on VLR. That level of teams' strategic play, their utility usage is just far beyond the NA teams of a similar ranking. And that scales upwards as well. Like as you go up to the top teams in EU, I think that scales.
I think the EU teams have really learned how to use utility really well. And that is what they've focused on. They've focused on like extremely principled utility usage. And then some of the other teams are like got good mid-round reads and stuff like that. But that's where they've really put their focus. Whereas NA has put their focus much more into
playing Reyna and running it down mid.
Into like the opping and how to get value out of holding one and done positions and like more of the fundamentals of just trading for each other and stuff like that. It's more of a scrimmy,
they've put
puggy
more of
kind
their
of
effort
style.
into how to maximize one and done positions. Can we make it a
like,
two and done?
I mean, it's very a crucial NA tactic. A tenet of NA tactic is that as soon as you plant the bomb, you make sure to all hold different angles and split 50, 100 light years away from the bomb, so you can never cover each other. That's a crucial NA post plant position right there. It's I don't know why it happens all the time too. NA post plant is actually, I would use another term, sodden. It's sodden. This is NA post plant at times.
It is, actually. The EU post plants look much more dynamic a lot of the time than North America does. But there are some NA teams that are really pushing the envelope as well in certain directions. Like Renegades are really, I think their burst style is really good. They've got like a style that works really well for them. I think TSM play that like loose, fraggy, all working on their fundamentals style really well. And I think that you look over at Sentinels and Sentinels and Envy actually are really refined with how they push areas of the map for information and try and create pressure everywhere and play at a high tempo. So the top level of NA, I'm still very impressed with. But once you start going down a little bit, EU has this is the opposite of what the public perception is. The public perception is NA has more orgs, therefore it has a much deeper scene. There's like 20 good teams in North America. When you watch EU, though, the level of good utility usage and strategy extends much deeper. Teams like L'Institute, Opportunists, even Enterprise, these kind of teams who are like top 16, top 20 in EU, still have really good fundamental utility usage and like good map control game to start with. That's what's really impressive.
And
I would say money does not make better teams.
No.
A classic.
I would say even beyond fundamental utility usage. I mean, some of those teams are very creative with it as well. I mean, they're like that game we watched with Enterprise, they were pushing the envelope with raised utility usage. It was actually just things I've never seen before, like satchel jumps I've never seen before being synced up with breach utility. Like these teams are really pushing that forward.
There were also definitely rounds where you watch those level of teams in Europe just crumble. They just watch them just in the mid round and they just fucking fall to pieces. So they're not consistently at that level, but they show rounds and strategies which are well beyond the level that you would expect of them, judging by where they're positioned. And the skill seems to be extremely high as well.
And consistency is built by support, though. I think is the reality is like EU for esports, aside from like League and CS, it's just like it's Europeans unemployed essentially when it's esports, because if you don't have the consistency of a backing to make money, it's really hard to like take your skill and apply it to where it's, because you're too busy working your other job, you're busy going to uni, like you have like a million things you're trying to do while trying to play the game, and you're not able to actually like build that really strong, deep pool that's necessary to be consistent for a team like that with the resources available. But I don't think there's enough footage myself. Like you're sort of just looking at EU and connecting the strings and being like the Pepe Sylvia from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where you're just like, yeah, this team looks pretty good. Yeah. This team could be pretty good. Like, but until I get like any sort of consistent footage or an international event, like at this point, I don't even know. Like all I could say is like G2, really, really good. It seems really, really good.
I think
and
it's
then, who knows?
It's FPX as well, though.
Yeah, FPX. Yeah, I'll give you FPX.
Sorry, what? Go on.
Oh no, go on, Josh.
Go on, Josh.
I was just saying that FPX as well. You have a lot of footage to know that they're at an elite level. But even when you dip down there into Liquid, or Guild or even new NIP with Safe. Like those 3 teams that people assume are the top 5 of EU, you have very little data to go on there because Liquid have changed their style completely, running Echoes on the Breach, Scream on the Jet. How many games have been broadcast? 1.
Yeah,
literally one game has been broadcast of them with their new setup.
Yeah. Go on, Wyatt.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, probably a topic to touch back on when the main events conclude. And we get to see an equal amount of games from the top teams. Main events.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is a good topic. I think this is really just highlighted though how important it is to build that foundation up in every region, even if the kind of foreseeable rewards from said region maybe aren't as lucrative. Like, I don't think EU seems like one of the most profitable regions when you're looking at like the esports ecosystem, but it is. If you look at just the pure competitive integrity across the board, like EU always produces good talent, always produces good teams, and always is competitive in most games they compete in. And it's a shame if the early kind of decision making that runs through kind of, I suppose, the Valorant esports ecosystem does kind of stunt that to a degree, and we could get so much better like in the near future in 2 years time. Because one of the points I was going to make was like, yes, the format shit, yeah, everything else, whatever. I mean, Riot have owned up to it, we all know it's bad, but in a year's time people are not really going to remember this format. They're not going to remember the mistakes that have been made previously. They're just kind of been brushed over, but it's important to correct them as early as possible, just because you kind of want to keep the momentum going. You want to build up a good start early on so that later on you've got a very good, well-functioning ecosystem in that region that when international tournaments are kicking off again, you've got these cross-region rivalries. You've got the good storylines that are setting up. You know, you've got an actual ecosystem in an esport that you can look back at and you can say, yeah, you know, it is a global esport. It hasn't been stunted early on. So there you go. That is my rant. I've just fucking send it out into the abyss. Ship it. Send it out. What are we talking about? What am I doing?
There it is.
Next topic.
He's the master strikes again.
It's like your senile grandpa that sits there during Christmas sipping his sherry, and then at one point he'll see something on the television that reminds him of like a moment back in 1942, and he's like, do you remember? And he just starts speaking, and you're like, oh my God, I forgot Grandpa was even here. And he just rants for a while, and then he's like, anyway, back to the sherry.
I feel like he wouldn't verbally say that like he's done with the rant. He would just slowly sink into his chair again. Wait. Okay, that's what Bren does. He'll do it, and he'll be like, yeah, and then he'll just like, then he'll just come back down.
Sure, yeah. The next topic I want to touch on is these teams disbanding, because Gen.G disbanded after the first strike tournament. The kind of quote underneath it is first of many, and I think this will be the first of many. I think there's probably a lot of organizations. Is Rick's even an org? I don't even know.
Yeah, I think they're an org. They're a brand new organization.
Okay, smaller org, yeah. So I think there are a lot of cases where there's probably some organizations, kind of like, I mean, Wyatt, you're probably pretty familiar with this, with like the rush of organizations trying to pick up Fortnite players with the run up to like major tournaments like the World Cup. This we saw a similar thing leading up into the first strike event. A lot of these kind of second tier organizations picking up these teams in the hopes that they end up qualifying, and kind of like as a bit of a gamble, you know, if they do well, you now have a top tier roster signed to your organization that could, you know, push you up into the limelight. So we're going to see a lot of scenarios like this. I feel like with some of the tier one orgs though, we're not going to see as many disbandings or breakups or kind of blow up moments, because we were mentioning it earlier with Cloud9 and stuff. I feel like these teams, generally speaking, they're standard. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no like month-to-month contracts, generally speaking, when it comes to the top level of these teams. They generally have security for about 6 months, roughly when the time of them being signed.
I'm under the impression that that's the case.
Like a 6-month contract, and then they reassess, and maybe they go longer if the success is good. Yeah. But generally, I think a lot of these orgs are biding their time. I don't know if you guys have any more input onto this than I do.
I don't know.
I mean, have input, but why you go first?
I would speculate that in terms of this topic's really got Bren excited.
Animal Planet, and he's over there. It's like it's a wild Earth. Like he's like, oh my God. Okay, let's
I would speculate that in terms of the tier 1 teams, you're not going to see so many roster blowups as you're going to see the ascension of the unknown tier 2 players that have been exposed by the light of First Strike, and they're going to sort of ascend to these tier 1 teams. That I could see happening. Some of the old guards starting to be replaced. I mean, old guard, the game's been out for like 7 months. I mean, they are the old guard. At this
In
point,
esports time, that's already 5 years.
Yeah. So I could see that happening, but I would suspect that in terms of the tier 2 teams, it's just going to be chaos. And I mean, especially for all the tier 2 teams, especially the unsigned, unsigned, there are going to be so many opportunities to switch players around, get players of, higher caliber that are unknown from the lower level teams, or just teams that didn't perform well just blowing up. I think the tier 2 scene will probably just implode. But what do you think?
Connor Prince.
I mean, we'll start with tier 2 and then we'll go to the contract stuff. So tier 2 in general is like, even if you're an org, quote unquote, a tier 2 org oftentimes is like an org in name only.
Yeah.
It's like they literally, it's like, guys, we make $1,000 a month from CSGO loot boxes and we're an org now. You know, it's like, that's like, so oftentimes tier 2 organizations, as someone that's participated in them, it's like kind of just an org in name only. Like you get a name, you get mouse pads, you know, like there's no real attachment like there necessarily oftentimes for these orgs. And they're kind of just looking to just, like Wyatt said, like they break into the limelight in a tier 1 event. Hopefully they get some notoriety and they can just sell the roster for a bunch of money, or they can get enough attention to attract some sponsors and then establish it. I mean, that's what Sentinels literally did that with Fortnite. Sentinels was a no-name, and then, you know, Booga happened, and then now they're doing it again with like Valorant, where they supposedly just like invested super heavily to get like a top tier Valorant roster really fast, and you know, it's worked out. And now they're kind of a more household name in esports. And then regarding contracts, so but also for EU in particular, I think tier 2 is like, it's just a never-ending pool of just like, it's like being in a magma pit. Once you get the mantle of the earth, it's just like stuff eating each other over and over because there's no consistency. Like there's no financial stability there.
Yeah.
Like they're just going to rosters are going to constantly dissolve and reform like over and over and over again until they make it to a tier 1.
Wow,
like
what
team.
an analogy.
Yeah. Well, you know, that intro to geology in my freshman year
fantastic.
really helped me out. But like, I do think that like it's and since Europe has so many less orgs in general, it's kind of just like, you also run into an issue where you have a hegemony of like tier 1 orgs that can just poach good talent as it arises. And that's an issue we've seen in other games too, where like if there's only like 5 teams paying money and a tier 2 team breaks into limelight, starts doing really well, they're just gonna be like, yo, we really need a fragger. This guy's ours now. Because it's like between making like $100 a month off tournament winnings or getting paid a salary. So like that's very likely to happen with Europe. But for contracts themselves, for like esports in general, it's kind of just like there are terms to contracts, but there's no binding legality. Like in terms of like, there's no body enforcing like it was like, we're going to sign you a 6-month contract, but it's kind of just like we can end it at any time often. Like there's no way to really, unless the player themselves go to take their case into the court, there's no real enforcement. Now, there's not always saying that orgs are ending contracts illegally. It's more of just, these are kind of just like they're at will.
They often have, they have clauses to just terminate.
Just terminate the contract. Yeah, there's nothing like, so like we're going to sign you to a year, but if in 6 months we really don't like you, we'll just end it sooner than that if we can find a replacement, you know, like, because that's where esports currently is, without like a governing body to say like, these are our contract links you must abide by, and without like resources to say like, we're going to have these sort of links, like, you know, there's no way to really enforce any sort of like links of contracts.
You guys like money?
I love money.
Yeah,
money is all right. It's pretty good.
$50,000 tournament on the line coming up after First Strike. Look at this, the JBL Quantum Cup. They make speakers, I'm pretty sure. I've got one in my gym. December the 12th, 100 Thieves is already confirmed. Boom. $50,000 tournament right after First Strike. Are you kidding me? Someone's going to be eating. I don't know who it is. Probably the winner of the First Strike North American tournament, but they're going to be eating good.
The thing about this, I think it's an interesting dichotomy with there's just going to be a 50K one weekend tournament the week after First Strike that will be incredibly easy to follow. And I would imagine we'll probably do equal, if not, well, maybe not better viewership, but comparative viewership and will probably be just as hype, far easier to follow.
People might be burnt out.
People might be.
There's a fuck ton of games happening in the previous weekend.
I'm not even sure people are watching the current games though. Like
half the time, people don't know what's happening.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
The
if you're a
viewership
casual
is
viewer,
like-
it's just
Yeah.
chaos.
I mean, the amount of viewership that we've had for these first strike qualifiers in North America is like Myth is sat there somewhere between 15 and 25K, depending on whether TSM are playing or whether there's like a big game going on. And then the mainstream is sat somewhere around like what 6 to 9K, something like that.
I don't think it's ever. I think it's peaked once at like 10, and then like, but I almost always see it sitting around 6 to 7.
Yeah. And then some of the other side streams of like the community streams are sat at between 1 and 3K as well. So when you add all of that together, what is the viewership like 30K, something like that? And
like 40.
that's at like, yeah. That's,
But also you have to take account for Myth. It's like sometimes it's just the personality stream. It's not so much avid followers of like the thing. They wouldn't watch it if Myth wasn't doing the co-stream. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely. But I also think though that is almost like a positive here because I don't think people are getting burnt out. I don't think people are watching. Like the amount of people that are genuinely going to tune in for the main event, I'm anticipating to be back to the Pop Flash kind of levels where what did they hit, like 80K, something like that?
I know definitely it was at least 50 to 60s, you know? So like, which is solid.
Yeah, maybe it was FaZe that was 80.
Yeah, FaZe
like
got
60.
higher, but Pop Flash was like 50s to 60s, which I think is solid. That's fine. Like for early, like I don't think you have to like make any sort of like, you don't want to be a viewership Vivek, you know, where you're over here like.
That was really the best name you could come up with.
I couldn't think of another V name. Vinny, viewership Vinny, I guess.
That's a much better one.
That viewership. I mean, Vivek's still a name. It's just, you know,
Vivek.
I know a guy named Vivek. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it just sounded like you were stuttering, and the guy's name was Vic.
It's a real his real name's Vivek. It's just it's
right,
an
right.
So
see,
you know, it's like
French.
but like no.
Won't say.
I just.
Huh?
What are you talking? What are you on about, Bren? What are you, Bren? Are you okay? What's happening?
Just naming different languages.
Oh, okay.
I'm speaking to you in French.
I don't. I'm American, dude. I only speak Kekona. I only speak Kekona.
Anyway,
but
go on then. What you saying?
I was just gonna say qualifiers. The viewership. I'll just pick a better name. The viewership Vinnies are always like, oh, dead game, like blah blah blah. And they'll do this to every esport. Like it doesn't matter which esport. It's like this game's qualifier for this major tournament has like 5,000 viewers, so thus the game is dead, you know, because we have like -2 brain cells running around. It's like so. It's like at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is your main event. Yeah. Realistically, when it comes to like these style of tournaments, when it's not like a league style viewership, but more of like a qualifier to main event, like where there's a lot of TOs and events happening independently, all that matters is the main stage in terms of like your overall where are we at, because that's where you want to be putting forth. The orgs want to get all their names out. That's where the sponsors want to be shown. That's the most easily sellable product. Like that's what you really want to see. And the qualifiers are just there because they need to be there. They're like high viewership's good, but it's not required for qualifiers.
Yeah. It makes it weird though for TOs that are partnering with Riot in the future, because unless your model is based on selling a lot of watch hours, which I can imagine that someone like NSG and UMG did, because they're going to combine all the data from the community streams together into one. Unless your model is very much based around hours watched, then your viewership peaks were pretty poor here. Considering the amount of effort that you had to go through to run these enormous qualifiers and the fact that you partnered with a Riot-specific event, the viewership was not great. So unless you're talking about like hours watched, where it was a really long tournament and a lot of different streams, so potentially there the numbers are pretty decent. You didn't get anything great out of this. If Riot just comes in and is like does all of the big announcements, the main event gets 80K, something like that. I don't really see a world in which that model is sustainable for the future. It seems more like you get more value out of the JBL Quantum Cup if you're a tournament organizer.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's just the Riot method, though. It's like they did the same thing with League, where it was like they had a third-party ecosystem, and they just put in LCS, LEC, and say, bye TOs. Like at this point, if you're a TO, like that's kind of, you should either have a very clear definition of what you want, or you should just be expecting the day to be cut out, is my particular view on it.
It's interesting actually that you say that, because with COVID, I think a lot of companies, or at least like it's becoming a bit of more of a scene the way it used to be, where you had like these companies setting up like studio events and being able to run tournaments. Obviously, they kind of got faded out almost by actual games taking immediate control over their tournaments. But with COVID, I think the situation is kind of changing where I think the money aspect, where how much it costs to actually run an event yourself, run a studio out, run all the admin, things like that, all these aspects might be easier now to kind of just like license that to an org, especially just in this COVID world, you know? It might change in a couple of years' time, might change in a year, might change in even less time than that. We don't know. But yeah, shout out to JBL Quantum. You want to sponsor our podcast? We got Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
It got spot with Jack Daniels, honey, right over. And also, I think, Josh, we're going to your point about like the hours watched. That is oftentimes esport org math to sell things to sponsors is very much a cumulative effort at times, I would say.
Yeah.
So I would not at all be surprised if like if the hours watched total metric was like the sales metric, you know? It's like this is like, it's like when YouTube game. What?
That ad just made me lose it. The part
Wait,
where
what was on the ad?
The part where the text "this" kills me coming up right here. Hold on.
What's
Playing
so
the
funny?
hottest games.
The chillest dudes, the hottest games.
Fuck.
So yeah, really
right, sorry,
good
Connor.
stuff there.
I'll
That's
just
it.
cut you off.
That's all I got. That's all I got.
Okay.
I want this to happen over in Europe as well.
Yeah.
I want to properly run tournament for Europe. Pretty please. If anyone has a spare 50 grand lying around and they're interested in making a tournament happen, that would be great actually.
What if they would do it, but it was a BO 0.5 where they'd only play one round? So like they would do it, but instead of a BO 1, you do the coin flip, who gets attack and defense, and then whoever wins that round, that half.
That's a good idea. Actually,
I like it.
That's the only way Europe's gonna get the 50 grand. So make your choice.
That's great. No,
Interesting.
that's wonderful. That sounds exactly like a format that you
right.
would
Yeah.
gobble
Well,
up.
Wyatt, you got a little award for me this week, or what? You got a little weekly award, or you holding out? Oh,
I do.
Shit! Is it JBL?
Another week? No, it's not JBL. They do have the hottest games.
Why won't they chill with the hottest podcast too? That's the crazy part about JBL.
The most jacked host.
I do have a weekly award. A lot of Valorant got played this past week. Some may say too much. A lot of Valorant played.
Some may say that.
So
Some may say too little for Europe.
Yeah, also true. So a lot of potential recipients, but one man stands above the rest in my eyes.
Me?
A very very influential week. That's sort of what stood out to me. This individual, he had a lot of influence on the scene this week.
Elon?
No. And for that reason, he's getting my award. And his name is a proto. Because not only is he incredible in the server, but he just has everyone running around with this waffle crosshair. He's influenced the masses. The amount of players that are now using the tic-tac-toe waffle crosshair, it's out of control.
Is it grown?
It is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's growing. It's
spreading
so
fast.
many people now.
Why?
It's spreading real
trend.
fast. The seed has been planted and the forest is blossoming.
Maybe I
right?
gotta try
so,
Really good analogies coming out, Wyatt. Really like it. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Like I'm on his Twitch right now, and
What, he stopped
I'm like,
using
oh,
it?
no.
he's using this.
No,
Wait.
I think that's just too low resolution for me to.
Might just be too low res.
I'm gonna be
looking
honest.
at
I can't see
resolution
shit.
right
I
now.
cannot see shit. I could not
Yeah,
tell.
Yeah, I
you.
can't
Here's the
make it
thing,
out.
though. A proto started with the waffle, and then he extended the lines.
Yeah.
At the end of the closed qualifier, so it was like it wasn't so much of a waffle. It had a very tiny center square, and then long lines coming out of it.
Yeah.
Which was weird because other people were behind the trend. They hadn't caught up with the proto yet.
I know he already started the new wave after he once he got everybody on that one, it wasn't cool anymore. He had to switch it up, do some new hot shit. So now he's got the extendo line version.
But a false flag crosshair attack where he put the waffle out there and then he changed, you know? I feel like that was a crisis actor from a proto there.
The fact, though, that he was able to influence so many pros into switching to that crosshair in just a week of qualifiers was pretty astounding, and it's a testament to just how damn good he is. It was like almost 40% headshot percentage.
No,
I mean, generally, though, he is insane.
40% headshot percentage.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Over the last 60 days, he is #1 in the world with 40% headshot percentage.
Dude, I'm telling you, a proto,
He's
that's why he was
ridiculous.
on the surprise list. That guy was nuts.
Yeah.
That guy was nutso. I think I legitimately, if some team poaches him from LG, it's like a huge pickup, aka C9.
Oh, yeah. If he joins C9, that'd be ridiculous. But I would imagine some team is trying to give him the super bag right now because he is possibly the #1 prospect right now.
Enhance.
The waffle.
I literally can't.
We can't zoom in anymore. We literally can't zoom in
So
anymore.
you don't have the technology.
No.
That's fine. We'll get you the electron tunneling microscope to enhance these clips later.
Pull that.
Yeah. I'm actually I'm looking as well. I'm gonna copy and paste this into the live chat so that there's more information than just a waffle on the screen. But this is all players across the world with more than 300 rounds played in the last 60 days. So the last 2 months of play. Basically, this is anyone who participated in any First Strike event ever in the world. And a proto's at the top where you need to order by headshot percentage. You need to click the thing where it says HS percentage, and it'll order it from top to bottom. There we go. And it's a proto at the top with like some other notable names like Rhyme and Angel are really high up there as well. Alexander Screams
Roka's
somewhere up there too.
Let's see, Roka. Roka's definitely very good at that.
But above them all is Mr. Waffle Man. And look at the percentage drop off as well. Like 40%, 40%. And then it very quickly goes down to 34, 33, like a third of the time getting kills. But towering above them all is Old Man Waffle.
Must be the waffle.
Old Man Waffle.
Oh, who's at the lowest?
We don't need to look at that.
We don't need to look at that, yeah.
That's rude.
We're a friendly podcast. What have I done to my phone?
I'm gonna start calling him Bren. Start calling him Old Man Waffle.
Old Man
Weirdly,
Waffle.
Old
actually,
Man Waffle.
Weirdly, Physic. You know the star duelist player for Vorax Fusion. It's like the second best team in Brazil. He's like down there with some of the worst headshot percentage ever, and he's fucking pounded.
Yeah, but that's because it's just like basketball, dude. It's like you got to use the backboard. You don't always need the swish.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, I know Meat Sports. Anyway, I think it's a good place to wrap that up, isn't it? You know? Because I'll be honest with you, I wish we wrapped this an hour ago because I am desperate for a shit. So let's end this podcast. Thanks for watching.
Strikes again.
What'd you say, Connor?
Man, Waffle strikes again, dude.
Yeah, what? Well, absolutely. I don't know what you just said. Well, I'm going to wrap the show. Thanks for joining us, Avast. Just going to ego you again, shift this conversation along as we wrap up the show. Thanks for watching Plat Chat VALORANT episode 20. Follow the Twitter thing as well if you use Twitter. Don't know if you do use Twitter these days. It's kind of a dying medium. You know?
Oh, and we'll hopefully have Shinobi on for an interview and for a guest next week.
Yep,
it's not been 100%
hopefully.
finalized yet, but we're in talks. His people are speaking to our people.
Yeah, we're gonna work out some contracts, some multi-million-dollar deals. And yeah, we'll catch you guys later. I'm gonna go shit myself.
Depends. Sponsor the show. Depends. Get adult diapers. Actually, I have to piss like a racehorse as well. Is the thing, 'cause I had been drinking so much water and had coffee before this because I was in a meeting and I was like,